It is for this reason you run, leaving behind the games, the amusements. Run now for the food your mother has prepared. For also may eat and rest and refresh himself. This is the story of Juanito and his father Juan Tomas Garcia, and his mother Maria, his sister Petra, his little brother Jesus, and the baby Conchita. This is the story of a part of the United States, the island of Puerto Rico. The story of the people who live on that island. This is a land where many live by farming, where a man's living comes from tobacco or coffee or citrus or sugar. Whatever the crop, the work is hard, the sun is hot. The work is hard, the land is poor. It is difficult for a man to earn a living. This is the story of how people are, how they act with each other, how they are happy and contented or miserable and afraid, the problems they have. Island, the land itself, the poverty on the land, have much to do with the nature of a man, a woman, a child. But the nature of people, the way they are, grows out of other things too. It grows out of the feelings a man has. The way he feels toward the men he works with, toward his wife, his children. This is a story of some of those feelings that men and women have. How those feelings affect the children, how they help to mold the way a child grows, the way he develops into a man, the kind of man he will be. It is also the story of children and how they feel, and what the feelings of a child may do to the man or woman that the child will grow into. A child learns to be a man by playing, by imitating in his play the things men do, the way grown-ups act. They pretend to be men because it makes them feel good inside. It makes them feel more like the grown-ups they admire most. They show off as if to say, see what a man I am going to be, and this is good. Because it is in this way that a child learns to be a man. But sometimes, without knowing any better, the child imitates only the bragging, unhappy part of a man.
Que macho.
What a man. But is that being a man, a real man? Sometimes a boy never becomes a man because he never stops pretending. But not every boy must just show off. Juanito can play at being a man by sitting quietly and enjoying the company of his father, Tomas. Every man wants his son to grow up to be a true man, and his daughter to marry a true man. But who knows if this will happen? Too often the boy will become a turkey, a peacock, a fool.
Hello everyone. We're back. Can I hear you? I know, because I didn't want you to hear me as I was scrambling on for all of my buttons. Oh god, I forgot to, whatever, it's fine, it doesn't matter. I don't even need it, whatever. I forgot to set up my chat to be on a separate screen, but it's fine. I don't need my separate screen. I could just ignore all of you again today. That seems good to me. Kind of on time for you, at least less than 10 minutes late. Okay, I want everyone to just like I want you to understand how hard, hold on, I want you to understand how hard my life is. Okay, so you might have noticed, I hope you've noticed something a little different today, okay? Something might be a little different today, okay? And that thing is, you sound odd and peculiar. That's fucked. That's not good, actually. That's not good at all. I don't know why I sound odd and peculiar. I shouldn't be sounding... My qualities are different? Okay, just give it to me straight. Is it worse? I'm not done setting it up yet. I haven't had the time to set up everything. I don't know why it doesn't sound the same. I don't understand what's wrong with it. I know something's wrong with it. You cut your hair? Shut up. Now's not the time. It's raspy? Why is it raspy? I didn't make it do that. It's fucked up. Oh my god, I know why. Wait, no, that's not it. No, I don't know why. I don't know why. Why does it do that? Why does it do that? Why does it do that? How do I have it not do that? Oh, fuck. Hello. Okay, we're back. It's peaky when you get loud. I have a compressor. It's fucked up what they do. It's fucked up what they do to this thing, man. Oh, God. Okay. Alright, I'm just gonna give up now. I've been trying all day to get it right. And I just can't get it right. I don't get it. Maybe it's a Windows 10 issue. It's like a nostalgia critic video. That's not helpful. That's not helpful. That is not... Fucking god, fuck. Okay, sorry. I'm so annoyed right now. Okay. You may have noticed that we are streaming today at 1080p. The reason why we're streaming at 1080p is because we have upgraded / downgraded the library computer. I finally got the old library computer to work again, and that's what we're on. Which is why I'm finally able to stream at 1080p. Your microphone is hungover? Fuck. Is it like affecting your... Oh shit, it really is, isn't it? Well, look, I'll do it again. I'll just fucking do the stream again. Warning? Warning? Why is there a warning? Please configure both primary and backup streams correctly. The comparison of streams failed because one of your streams has an invalid configuration. I don't know what that means. What the fuck? What? I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. Okay, we're gonna give up. Okay. Whatever. Okay, so the reason why we're streaming 1080p today, and probably hopefully for the rest of time, is because I finally got my old library computer to work. Now that's the good news, right? Here's the bad news. The bad news is it's 1080p at the cost of I had to fucking do everything again. And I mean everything, because in the process of getting my PC fixed, it turned out that the hard drive on it was fucked, so I had to completely wipe everything and like start anew, which is fine anyways, but you know, like what that also means is like I had to like And like, okay, what that the not it's not what that means, but something else with the PC, right? That you need to know is that due to bullshittery fuck ass reasons, it's a Windows 10 computer and it only supports Windows 10. It does not support Windows 11. So I'm actually technically downgrading because the old one I used to use is a smaller compact system that sucks more, but is relative to its size and much better. Now this is a much bigger computer, but it's older and it only runs Windows 10. That's one of the things, right? So it's on a countdown, it's on a timer. It's just like me, okay? I'm 60 years old. I'm on a timer. I'm on the clock, okay? If I want to like I was gonna say if I want to like get married and have kids, like I'm really on a timer, but 60 years old is kind of like too late already. I'm a lost cause, but more importantly, I'm on a death timer. Like I'm gonna die any minute now. Or like I already feel like I'm dying, actually, come to think of it. But it's only worse for my computer. Like it is only worse for my library computer now. It has a worse lifespan than me and worse odds of being able to make it out alive than me. Okay, this thing is gonna die in like, I want to say probably half a year, because they're gonna stop service for Windows 10, aren't they? And then like my computer's gonna get a virus. I'm gonna get a virus. I'm gonna get hacked. Someone's gonna take over my YouTube channel and start uploading fucking Bitcoin streams or whatever the fuck. Oh god, what do they do? Anyways, that's not for me to worry about right now. Right now I need to worry about other shit, like how, for example, in the span of the last 2 hours, because I had no other goddamn time throughout the entire week, and the span of the last 2 hours I had to just recreate my entire OBS system and my streaming system and my YouTube studio and like everything. I needed to do all of that, and I didn't do it right, which is why my transitions look fucked too. Just ignore them, okay? I needed to redo them on my computer, but I also needed to do them in 1080p, so I basically had to just rebuild them, or not rebuild them, but like readjust them to all be in 1080p. I had to readjust all my microphone settings. I don't know why it's fucked up now. I'll figure it out again for next stream to see what's wrong with the microphone today. In the meantime, you're just going to have to get used to this. Fuck. I had to go find the book, If It Bleeds, which I couldn't, which it took a long time to find, but I have it now at least, because I don't know why they have to make it so hard for me to just read text. I thought reading was good. I thought we wanted people to read. Why do we make it so much harder for people to read if it's a good thing? If it's a good thing, why do we stop people from doing it? Are we stupid? Like, what is going on? Why is it so fucked up? Whatever. It doesn't even matter. And then like I haven't streamed in a few days, so I'm like nervous. Also yesterday I was gonna take a nap at like 5 p.m. and then I woke up at 3 a.m. with like chicken that's been defrosted for like 11 or 12 or 15 hours or something, and like no idea of what the time was. That's and then I had to like go about my day, and after like 4 a.m. once I was finished with dinner, I don't know what the fuck time is anymore. Academics think it's funny to punish poor people. I'll put an asterisk on that. It's less the academics themselves, although they contribute to this nasty system, and more so the publishers and publishing companies that are consumed by nothing but greed. There's a recently released character in Reverse 1999 based off of Jorge Luis Borges. That's cool. I did do a Borges stream, or rather a Library of Babel stream recently. I need to Spotify's. Sorry, my like music's a bit loud. Okay. Hello, Charis, how are you? Hello, Victor. Happy birthday. I hope you have a good birthday. Okay, stop asking. Don't ask me now. Don't ask me. don't ask. I beat you. I already said it. Stop. You have nothing to ask anymore. We're just gonna get on with the stream, okay? We're just gonna get on with the stream. I'm way too tired to fight you on this. You can just have it, okay? Just have it. Just have it. Just have it. Just have it. I'm too tired to fight you guys, okay? I have to like do the stream and then like go to sleep or something. I don't know. I'm way too tired. Yeah, I hope you have a happy and great day or whatever. I don't know. Whatever. I'm watching it at 114p. So you're basically watching me like as usual. You'll be fine. Thank you for using the chat box. Thank you for making it. Thank you for making it. I am eventually going to rehaul everything. I appreciate that so much of this stuff has been made by people who are here today, actually, completely of their own free will and volition, and for which I had no input on, because why the fuck would I have input on it? Eventually I'm going to do an overhaul, but not now. Our team and I are planning an overhaul. I can say that. I can tell you that much. We're maybe not planning, we're thinking about it. Because our team might just go like, this is too much fucking work, and then not do it, which is completely fair for her. But yeah. Not watching and listening, fair enough. Well, I apologize because the quality is probably a bit worse today because I haven't had time to set everything up and adjust it all according to the way it should be. I just don't get it. I just don't understand. I just don't understand what the fuck is wrong with it. Why? Why is that? Why is that the case? Why is it the case? Is it my noise gate? No. Is it the limiter? No. Fuck, I don't know what's going on. Can you run more demanding games now? Fingers crossed for an Expedition 33 stream. Yes, probably. It can. So it's an upgrade in the sense that my computer is probably a stronger computer. Here's the bad news, though. The bad news is, one, it's on Windows 10. Two, there are some aspects of it that are a little worse than my old computer, or the one I used to stream on, which is technically a newer computer. It's fucked up and weird, okay? Nobody has a more fucked up and weird... No, that's not true. A lot of people do, but like I have a very fucked up and weird like streaming setup, okay? We're only beginning to approach normality with the fact that I'm finally streaming on a device that's not a fucking laptop, basically a laptop anyways. So fingers crossed I can stream stuff like Detroit Become Human or whatever. Expedition 33 would be really cool and fun, but it might be a very long game. I don't know if there's an interest in me playing it or in watching me play it. I'm interested in playing it, but you know, there's so much shit I need to do as well, so we'll see. I saw you liked my art in Discord. Well, I kind of felt like I had to, because otherwise you're gonna like ping me and say, hello, like my art please, or else, and then you'll threaten me, and then I'll have to go, okay, I like your art. And I open up Discord, like, which is not that easy to do, because I open up Discord and it's like me in like, what is that? What type of like outfit am I looking at? Is it like a dress? I don't know what it is. I don't know. Nobody's threatening you. Nobody's threatening me yet because I'm complying. I'm in a slip dress. Yeah. So it's like... What do you mean? I mean, like, I'm opening up Discord to see myself in a slip dress, and I go like, I think I look good on it. I think. But I just don't know why you decided to put me there. Because I wouldn't wear that. I wouldn't wear that. You will not see our team make like an outfit where I wear a slip dress. It's cute. I mean, like, I don't know, is it? I can't tell. I have no idea. I'll have to ask our team, I think. I thought I did good. I thought you did good too. It's just I'm confused because it's like it's good, don't get me wrong. I'm just like it's jarring to me because I wouldn't wear that in real life. You know. Our team said she'd draw you in a maid dress for free. That's kind of cap. Yeah, okay, yeah. You're right. Our team would probably be on your guys' side. It's an uphill battle here in the Library of Alexandria. It's an uphill fucking battle, man. It was recommended Expedition 33 because it complimented your vibe well. Also, I know you enjoy JRPG garbage. I do, yes, to both those things. I have a friend who's really, really into it, and he's told me to play it as well. I haven't had the opportunity to yet, but, you know, I might. You are just a baby girl. Yeah, alright, okay, it's okay. We'll go back to... It's okay, you can use words that I don't understand, and in return, I explain the same fundamental philosophical concepts that you will also not understand. That's our give and take here. Anyways, a couple things before we begin. I realize I say as... What the fuck? Why is there a warning? Another warning? What am I being warned about? Primary and backup streams. Are my streams... Is my stream fine? Is it fine? Does it make sense? Is it okay? Oh, I forgot to mention the other thing. Yeah, the other problem. The other problem with this computer is for some reason I'm limited to... I don't know how to explain it, but basically I have good internet, but I am not able to use it yet on my computer. Like it's using like a shittier version of my internet. So, and I just don't know how to get it to not use my shittier, because I'm trying to connect it to LAN, to like an extender, and my extender is not able to capture the full like girth of my... That's not the right word. The full like capacity of my internet, which it would be able to take advantage of if it had a Wi-Fi chip in it, but my PC does not have a Wi-Fi chip in it. So it's connected to LAN, but it's technically worse because my mesh extender doesn't fucking work properly. So I need to fix that as well. So my internet speed is basically like halved, or even like put up in a third. Like it's cut up into like a third of what it once was. All right, so if I'm this simple reading fuck, and this I'm fucking... I don't want to do this anymore. If in this simple reading stream I start cutting out and lagging, you know why. You'll know why, okay? How did you get Phil the Neutrophil, a biologist, to collab with you? Excellent question. Excellent question. You lot don't understand how much I do for this. How much I sacrifice in my art. Anyways, I just wanted to say that didn't really have anything to do with what I wanted to follow with. That I just wanted to say it again, okay? I just wanted to say, like, nobody understands me in my art. I just love saying those words, okay? They may not really mean anything. I just like saying them. Just let me say them, okay? Anyways, if you may have paid close attention, or some amount of very basic attention, and noticed that I have a post up on the Discord and on the Twitter and also on my channel where no, hold on, I only have the schedule up on my channel posts, but basically in the channel you will see that on Sunday the 29th of June there is for Future Euphranor, which is I think probably the last like week. It's the last week of the Charis Euphranor week. Charis Euphranor month. It's the last week of the Charis Euphranor month. And for Future Euphranor, we have a collab lined up on the 29th of Sunday with Phi the Neutrophil. He is very cool. How did you manage to do that? Yeah, you might be asking. You might be looking at this person's channel and going like, wow, this guy's actually like a good like VTuber. This guy's got like videos, he's got like shorts, he's got like streams that do really well. What the fuck is Charis Euphranor doing inviting this guy onto his humble abode, right? You might be wondering. Well, to cut a long story short, I have an insane amount of Riz and no one should ever doubt me again. Yes, a video with 400k views. What are you? I'm the best philosopher VTuber. That's who I am. Is it a Q&A? Can chat submit questions? You can ask questions during the stream, but it's not really a Q&A stream. Obviously I'll actually like explain it when we do the stream because it's the first time I'm doing this. But this is sort of like, it's sort of like a game show, sort of a game show, quiz show, discussion stream format called Better Question Wins. And basically, the way this works is it's like an interview. But it's kind of like it's an asymmetrical interview. It's not one way, so it's not me asking him questions one way or him asking me questions another way, and it's not a mutual interview. So a standard interview is the host has a guest on and asks the guest questions. This is an interview you'll see very often in, like, you know, when celebrities go on tour to market their films, right? A reverse interview is something like maybe like Tom Green, what's his name? Hank Green, the guy, the science guy. He has a show. Hank Phil Green, the you know, the guy who does the science videos who like beat cancer a while ago, that guy. I forgot his name. Hank Green, I think is his name. Yeah, Hank Green. Okay, sorry. So he has this show where he invites a guest on, and the guest asks him questions. It's like 10 questions. And then through the guest asking him questions, you know, it's sort of like a reverse interview in a cool way, right? Then you come to Variety, where John Green's the author brother, yes. So then you come to the Variety YouTube channel where they do like celebrities on celebrities, and they'll have two like actors or actors on actors. They have two actors in a room with each other, and they're interviewing each other. So they're both on an equal field. They're asking each other questions. It's sort of a discussion, like session, but also sort of a mutual interview because they're trying to, you know, understand each other's works. And it's really cool because it kind of like subverts the interview format in that way as well. Better Question Wins, I would say on this scale, leans a bit more towards the Hank Green spectrum, part of the spectrum, where the host is being asked questions by the guest. However, there is also an asymmetric gamified aspect to it because the guest is allowed to ask as many questions as they want. That will be whoever comes on. The host, however, me, I'm only allowed to ask one question to them. One big question. We can have like smaller questions in the discussion, but it's like one big question overall. And the goal, or the part of the gimmick of the show is, and I'll be able to explain it better once I get this out of my system first and I actually have time to like think about what the fuck I'm talking about right now, right? The gimmick of the show is whoever asked the question that generated more interesting discussion wins. You don't really win anything, but like, you know, you win, I guess. And the idea is, it's almost like a competition for who can ask the more interesting, or the more like interesting, discussion provoking questions. But I have to have a disadvantage, or I have a disadvantage at least, where I'm only allowed one, whereas the guest is allowed as many as they want. And this is an exercise in asking good questions, basically. That's all it is. Chat has nothing to do with it. You have like nothing to contribute. Yes, okay, you have something to contribute. So obviously, throughout the bigger questions, smaller questions might come up, and we'll just talk, right? The whole point is we're just trying to have a discussion. And if chat has questions they want to ask that spring from the bigger questions that, you know, are asked throughout, then that contributes to how much interesting and meaningful discussion can be synthesized from that topic or from that broad question. What if we ask the most interesting questions? If you thought about that, you basically all, you don't get to win, but you do get to help decide who wins. You're all kingmakers, I guess, in that sense. He's chronically broke. He can't bribe anyone. That is correct, which is why that is definitive proof. That is definitive proof for why I did not bribe the neutrophil, is because I wouldn't be able to afford it. I wouldn't be able to afford to bribe him, okay? If that was what it took. Can I ask why philosophy was invented by a guy with syphilis? I might throw you into the dungeon. If you embarrass me in front of my first guest for this game format show, I will throw you into the dungeon, okay? No questions asked. Anyways, I'm really looking forward to it. I've had a chat with him off stream, obviously, about this, and I think he's excited about this as well. I think there will be a lot to say, and I don't think we're ever going to run out of discussion topics. So the real challenge ahead of, you know, Sunday stream is, am I able to rein in all the conversation so that we can have some succinct and interesting points delivered in like an hour or two that generally is able to appeal to a broad audience. So choose your first guest? No, our team was my first guest. I'm on the channel. I'm specifically referring to my first guest for this show / format, which is a work in progress. Ask a biologist which comes first, the chicken or the egg. But he's not just any biologist, so it's like, it's kind of like, you know, when you watch like Hot Ones and Sean Evans kind of comes up, he's like, so in 1952, when you were in this amateur Broadway play, in this amateur play performing to the audience of 5 people, how did you feel when you finally recited the ending sequence of Macbeth when you were playing the titular character? You know, like he will ask a question like that. You know, that is the part of the goal of asking a good question, is you have to get to a level of specificity that makes it so that the question could only make sense to be answered by that person you're interviewing. And that's a skill. I think that's a really important skill. So I'm not just going to ask him general broad questions. I need to ask him very specific questions that I think he would have a really unique insight into as a person, like as a human being. So now I won't ask him whichever came first, the chicken or the egg, okay? Can I ask, can philosophy cure syphilis? No. No, you're hereby banned from asking that question. Or can we ask udon or ramen? You're banned. I can't ban you for that. I can't ban you from that, I mean. Whatever. Shut up. Shut up. Okay. Let's reset. All right, that's everything we have, I think, for housekeeping. Well, you may also have noticed that the upcoming streams are a little strange. What is Discord tutorial, right? On Saturday. What the fuck does that mean? What remains of Edith Finch? Okay, that's a game. You might be able to figure that out. That's a video game, so you can, like, you know, you can gather that I'm streaming a video game on Friday. But on Saturday, I'm streaming Discord tutorial. You don't know what that is, and you won't have to know what that is until we stream it. Okay? That's all. You don't have to know. You don't have to know. Can make the joke that a philosophy degree means you're actually not wise for choosing to do that to yourself. Oh yeah. But I've already made it, okay? I made it long before I even debuted. I'm asking why specific groups of blood antigens are necessary for blood transfusion and others are optional. I guess you could ask that, yeah. Can I guess what that is? Yeah, you can guess, I guess. How about as mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell kind of outdated? Okay, just don't ask me if you could ask that question. Think of questions that you think would actually be good. But more importantly, I would hope they should be relevant to the discussion we have, and then maybe Fi will answer you. Okay, or you can go to his. You could just go to his streams and ask him questions. Honestly, you should just, if you have specifically bio questions, you should just go to his streams and ask him. Okay. He's the educator, okay, not me. I'm just the first and last philosopher VTuber, the last librarian of Alexandria. You don't pull the Hypercam Loquendo X-Files music for the Discord tutorial and canceling on Twitter? Oh. There's a really good joke. It's not like a verbal joke, it's like an audio joke. There's a really good joke I could do right now that I don't, but I can't. Well, there's a really good joke in my head and I can't do it, so never mind. Is it the tutorial for the puzzle you have to solve before joining the Discord? Time will tell, and so will I. Would nature versus nurture be a fitting question? I think it would. So it really all just depends on what types of questions Fi ends up asking me, and what types of question, or what the type of question I end up asking him is. And as long as, you know, it's somewhat connected to whatever we're talking about, you can ask, you know, whatever you think is worth asking. But again, don't be bummed out if, like, you know, we don't get to your question, because you could just go to his fucking channel and just, like, ask him. He's really good at reading chat and answering questions eloquently, so might as well just let him do it. So glad I'm 40 minutes late and you haven't started stream. Okay, motherfuckers. Alright, okay. We're starting stream now. We're fucking starting stream now. God damn it. What even is, like, first backup stream? What the hell? What even is that? What does that even mean? Is the Discord tutorial the test we need to take to enter the Discord? You will see. You will see what it is on Saturday. Saturday. Okay. I'm done talking to you. Done talking to you people. There will be a game on Friday. You can talk to me then. There will be a stream on Saturday. You can talk to me then. There will be a very special stream on Sunday. You can talk to me then, but I will probably ignore you. Don't embarrass me in front of my new guest, okay? I will kill all of you. You could, if you embarrass me in front of Ochu, it's like, it's okay. At least Ochu's been in this chat for like some time, and she knows you guys are cringe. But if you guys like embarrass me for a fight, it's like it's so over. I'm throwing you all in the dungeon. All right, okay. Today we are, and I hope that, you know, the circumstances of today's stream is also not going to completely destroy whatever it is I wanted to try to do. But today we're going to read very quickly, very briefly, The Life of Chuck. I don't know how long it is exactly. Let me look at it right now. It's like 60 pages. Fuck. It's like 60 pages, okay? This is a reading stream again. I want everyone to try to pay attention. And if you can't, then pretend like you are going to, okay? I'm going to read a book. You should have thought about this. I did think about it. Or should be part 2 and 3 of Date Everything. Fucking, we'll do it next week, okay? Stop. Can we do multiple? I'll see how much I can get through today. And then if we can't get through everything, maybe we'll stream tomorrow. I don't know. Like a part 2. We'll see. Anyways. Life of Chuck. Life of Chuck is a short story by Stephen King. It's packaged in a collection of his novellas, and the collection is titled If It Bleeds. I'm only going to be reading the Life of Chuck story. Ignore if the title previously was like, and the other novellas. We're not doing those. We're just doing this one. Alright, and just like that, I want to say roughly 40 minutes after I began actually streaming, let the reading begin. Alright? Okay, yeah, just ignore that. Just ignore that that's what we're doing, okay? Just ignore that that's what the translation looks like. Pretend like it's the old one. What's going on? Why is it yellow? Why is my screen yellow? That's fucked up. Do you see yellow? You don't see yellow. Okay, it's fine. Okay. What are your thoughts on the Liver King situation? I don't know what that is, so ask me again next stream and I'll look it up. Alright, this is The Life of Chuck, a short story, a novella by Stephen King. It is written in 3 acts, and it's actually told in reverse order. It tells the life of Chuck, but in reverse order. It's really interesting, and more importantly, there's a film based on this novella that's come out recently that I was going to watch over the weekend, but I didn't have enough time to, so I couldn't. I ended up having to cancel it, which really sucks because I really want to watch the movie so badly. So I might just see it like this weekend, or like next weekend by myself, because the friend I was gonna watch it to is like not around anymore for this weekend. So if I were to go watch a movie, I have to go by myself, and I really don't like going to the movie. I've never been to the movies by myself, but I might have to for this movie, for this one in particular, because I just really want to see it. Whatever. You don't need to know that. You don't need to know this part of my life. Is your computer fixed? Fixed? No, it's like somewhat fixed. Okay. Without further ado, without much further ado, much with us instead? Nah, I don't know. Without much further ado, here is the life of Chuck. Act 3. Thanks, Chuck. The day Marty Anderson saw the billboard was just before the internet finally went down for good. It had been wobbling for 8 months since the first short interruptions. Everyone agreed it was only a matter of time, and everyone agreed they would muddle through somehow once the wired-in world finally went dark. After all, they had managed without it, hadn't they? Besides, there were other problems, like whole species of birds and fish dying off, and now there was California to think about. Going, possibly soon to be gone. Marty was late leaving school, because it was that least favorite day. For high school educators, the one set aside for parent-teacher conferences. As this one had played out, Marty had found few parents interested in discussing little Johnny and little Janie's progress, or lack of it. Mostly they wanted to discuss the probable final failure of the internet, which would sink their Facebook and Instagram accounts for good. None of them mentioned Pornhub, but Mary suspected many of the parents who showed up, female as well as male, were mourning that site's impending extinction as well. Ordinarily, Marty would have driven home by way of the turnpike bypass. Zippity-zip, hominy-jiff, but that wasn't possible due to the collapse of the bridge over Otter Creek. Otter Creek. That had happened 4 months ago, and there was no sign of repairs. Just orange-striped wooden barriers that already looked dingy and were covered with Tagger's logos. With the bypass closed, Marty was forced to drive directly through downtown to reach his house on Cedar Court, along with everyone else who lived on the east side. Thanks to the conferences, he'd left at 5 instead of 3, at the height of rush hour, and a drive that would have taken 20 minutes in the old days would have taken... a drive that would have taken 20 minutes in the old days would take at least an hour, probably longer, because some of the traffic lights were out as well. It was stop and go all the way, with plenty of horns, screeching brakes, bumper kisses, and waved middle fingers. He was stopped for 10 minutes at the intersection of Main and Market, so had plenty of time to notice the billboard on top of the Midwest Trust building. Until today, it had advertised one of the airlines, Delta or Southwest. Marty couldn't remember which. This afternoon, the happy crew of arm-in-arm flight attendants had been replaced by a photograph of a moon-faced man with black-framed glasses that matched his black, neatly combed hair. He was sitting at a desk, with a pen in his hand, jacketless but with his tie carefully knotted at the collar of his white shirt. On the hand holding the pen there was a crescent-shaped scar that had for some reason not been airbrushed out. To Marty, he looked like an accountant. He was smiling cheerfully down at the snarled twilight traffic from his perch high atop the bank building. Above his head, in blue, was Charles Krantz. Below his desk, in red, was 39 great years. Thanks, Chuck. Marty had never heard of Charles Chuck Krantz, but supposed he must have been a pretty big bug at Midwest Trust to rate a retirement photo on a spotlit billboard that had to be at least 15 feet high and 50 feet across. And the photo must be an old one if he put in almost 40 years, or his hair would have been white. Or gone, Marty said, and brushed at his own thinning thatch. He took a chance at downtown's main intersection 5 minutes later, when a momentary hole opened up. He squirted his Prius through it, tensing for a collision and ignoring the shaken fist of a man who squelched to a stop only inches from T-boning him. There was another tie-up at the top of Main Street, and another close call. By the time he got home, he had forgotten all about the billboard. He drove into the garage, pushed the button that lowered the door, and then just sat for a full minute, breathing deeply and trying not to think about having to run the same gauntlet tomorrow morning. With the bypass closed, there was just no other choice. If he wanted to go to work at all, that was, and right then, taking a sick day, he had plenty of them stacked up, seemed like a more attractive option. I wouldn't be the only one, he told the empty garage. He knew this to be true. According to the New York Times, which he read on his tablet every morning if the internet was working, absenteeism was at a worldwide high. He grabbed his stack of books with one hand and his battered old briefcase with the other. It was heavy with papers that would need correcting. Thus burdened, he struggled out of the car and closed the door with his butt. The sight of his shadow on the wall doing something that looked like a funky dance move made him laugh. The sound startled him. Laughter in these difficult days was hard to come by. Then he dropped half his books on the garage floor, which put an end to any nascent good humor. He gathered up Introduction to American Literature and 4 short novels. He was currently teaching the Red Badge of Courage to his sophomores, and went inside. He had barely managed to get everything on the kitchen counter before the phone rang. The landline, of course. There was hardly any cell coverage these days. He sometimes congratulated himself on keeping his landline when so many of his colleagues had given theirs up. Those folks were truly hung, because getting one put in this last year or so, forget about it. You'd be more likely to be using the turnpike bypass again before you got to the top of the waiting list, and even the landlines now had frequent outages. Caller ID no longer worked, but he was sure enough about who was on the other end to simply pick up the phone and say, "Yo, Felicia." "Where have you been?" his ex-wife asked him. "I've been trying to reach you for an hour." Marty explained about the parent-teacher conferences and the long trip home. "Are you okay?" "I will be as soon as I get something to eat. How are you, Fel?" I'm getting along, but we had 6 more today." Marty didn't have to ask her 6 more of what. Felicia was a nurse at City General, where the nursing staff now called itself the Suicide Squad. "Sorry to hear that. Sign of the times." He could hear the shrug in her voice and thought that 2 years ago, when they'd still been married, 6 suicides in one day would have left her shaken, heartbroken, and sleepless. But you could get used to anything, it seemed. "Are you still taking your ulcer medication, Marty?" Before he could reply, she hurried on. "It's not nagging, just concern. Divorce doesn't mean I still don't care about you, you know?" "I know, and I am." This was half a lie, because the doctor prescribed Carafate. Carafate was now impossible to get, and he was relying on Prilosec. He told the half-lie because he still cared about her, too. They actually got along better now that they weren't married anymore. There was even sex, and although it was infrequent, it was pretty damn good. "I appreciate you asking." "Really?" "Yes, ma'am." He opened the fridge. Pickings were slim, but there were hot dogs, a few eggs, and a can of blueberry yogurt he would save for a pre-bedtime snack. Also 3 cans of hams. Good. How many parents actually showed up? More than I expected, far less than a full house. Mostly they wanted to talk about the internet. They seemed to think that I should know why it keeps shitting the bed. I had to keep telling them I'm an English teacher, not an IT guy. "You know about California, right?" Lowering her voice as if imparting a great secret. "Yes." That morning, a gigantic earthquake, the 3rd in the last month and by far the worst, had sent another large chunk of the Golden State into the Pacific Ocean. The good news was that most of that part of the state had been evacuated. The bad news was that now hundreds of thousands of refugees were trekking east, turning Nevada into one of the most populous states in the Union. Gasoline in Nevada currently costs $20 a gallon. Cash only. And if the station wasn't tapped out. Marty grabbed a half-empty quart of milk, sniffed and drank from the bottle in spite of the faintly suspicious aroma. He needed a real drink, but knew from bitter experience and sleepless nights that he had to insulate his stomach first. He said, "It's interesting to me that the parents who did show up seemed more concerned about the internet than the California quakes. I suppose because the state's breadbasket regions are still there. But for how long? I heard scientists on NPR say that California is peeling away like old wallpaper, and another Japanese reactor got inundated this afternoon. They're saying it was shut down? All's well, but I don't think I believe that." Cynic. "We're living in cynical times, Marty." She hesitated. "Some people think we're living in the last times. Not just the religious crazies either. Not anymore. You heard that from a member in good standing of the City General Suicide Squad. We lost 6 today, true, but there were 18 more we dragged back, most with the help of naloxone. But," she lowered her voice again, "supplies of that are getting very thin. I heard the head pharmacist saying we might be completely out by the end of the month." "That sucks," Marty said, eyeing his briefcase. All those papers waiting to be processed, all those spelling errors waiting to be corrected, all those dangling subordinate clauses and vague conclusions waiting to be read inked. Computer crutches like spell check and apps like grammar alert didn't seem to help. Just thinking of it made him tired. Listen, Fel, I ought to go. I have tests to grade and essays on mending wall to correct. The thought of the old stacked vapidities and those waiting essays made him feel old. All right, Felicia said. Just, touching base. Roger that. Marty opened the cupboard and took down the bourbon. He would wait until she was off the phone to pour it, lest she hear the glugging and know what he was doing. Wives had intuition. Ex-wives seemed to develop high-def radar. Could I say I love you? She asked. Only if I can say it right back, Marty replied, running his finger over the label on the bottle. Early Times, a very good brand, he thought, for these later times. I love you, Marty. And I love you. A good place then, but she was still there. Marty? What, hun? The world is going down the drain, and all we can say is that sucks, so maybe we're going down the drain too. Maybe we are, he said, but Chuck Krantz is retiring, so I guess there's a gleam of light in the darkness. 39 great years, she responded, and it was her turn to laugh. He put the milk down. You saw the billboard? No, it was an ad on the radio, that NPR show I was telling you about. If they're running ads on NPR, it really is the end of the world, Marty said. She laughed again, and the sound made him glad. Tell me, how does Chuck Krantz rate this kind of coverage? He looks like an accountant, and I've never heard of him. No idea. The world is full of mysteries. No hard stuff, Marty. I know you're thinking of it. Have a beer instead. He didn't laugh as he ended the call, but he smiled. Ex-wife radar, high def. He put the Early Times back in the cupboard and grabbed a beer instead. He plopped a couple of hot dogs into water and went into his little study to see if the internet was up while he waited for the water to boil. It was, and seemed to be running at a slightly better than its usual slow crawl. He went to Netflix thinking he might rewatch an episode of Breaking Bad or The Wire while he ate his dogs. The welcome screen came up, showing selections that hadn't changed since last evening, and the stuff on Netflix used to change just about every day, not so long ago, but before he could decide on which bad guy he wanted to watch, Walter White or Stringer Bell, the welcome screen disappeared. Searching appeared, and the little worry circle. Fuck, Marty said, gone for the night. Then, the worry circle disappeared and the screen came back. Only it wasn't the Netflix welcome screen, it was Charles Krantz sitting at his paper-strewn desk, smiling with his pen in his scarred hand. Charles Krantz, above him. 39 great years. Thanks, Chuck, below. Who the fuck are you, Chucky? Marty asked. How do you rate? And then, as if his breath had blown out the internet like a birthday candle, the picture disappeared and the words on the screen were connection lost. It did not come back that night, like half of California, soon to be 3/4, the internet had vanished. The first thing Marty noticed the next day as he backed his car out of the garage was the sky. How long had it been since he had seen that clear, unblemished blue? A month? 6 weeks? The clouds and the rain, sometimes a drizzle, sometimes a torrent, were almost constant now, and on days when the clouds cleared, the sky usually remained bleary from the smoke of fires in the Midwest. They had blackened most of Iowa and Nebraska and were moving on to Kansas, driven by gale force winds. The second thing he noticed was Gus Wilfung trudging up the street with his oversized lunchbox banging against his thigh. Gus was wearing khakis, but with a tie. He was a supervisor at the city's public works department. Although it was only 7:15, he looked tired and out of sorts, as if at the end of a long day instead of just starting one. And if he was just starting one, why was he walking toward his house next door to Marty's? Also, Marty powered down his window. Where's your car? Gus's short laugh was humorless. Parked on the sidewalk halfway down Main Street Hill, along with about 100 others. He blew out his breath. Whew, I can't remember the last time I walked 3 miles. Which probably says more about me than you want to know. If you're going to school, buddy, you're going to have to go all the way out Route 11 and then hook back on Route 19. 20 miles at least, and there'll be plenty of traffic there too. You might arrive in time for lunch, but I wouldn't count on it. What happened? Sinkhole opened up in the intersection of Main and Market. Man, it's huge. All the rain we've been having might have something to do with it. Lack of maintenance, probably even more. Not my department, thank God. Gotta be 20 cars at the bottom of it, maybe 30? And some of the people in those cars, he shook his head. They ain't coming back. Jesus, Marty said. I was just there last evening. Backed up in traffic. Be glad you weren't there this morning. Mind if I get in with you? Sit down for a minute? I'm pooped and Jenny will have gone back to bed. I don't want to wake her up, especially with bad news. Sure. Gus got in the car. This is bad, my friend. It sucks, Marty agreed. It was what he'd said to Felicia last night. Just got to grin and bear it, I guess. I'm not grinning, Gus said. Planning to take a day off? Gus raised his hands and brought them down on the lunchbox in his lap. I don't know. Maybe I'll make some calls, see if someone can pick me up, but not hopeful. If you do take the day, don't plan to spend it watching Netflix or YouTube videos. Internet's down again. I've got a feeling it might be for good this time. I'm assuming you know about California, Gus said. I didn't turn on the TV this morning. Slept in a bit. He paused. Didn't want to watch it anyway, to tell you the truth. Is there something new? Yeah. The rest of it went. He reconsidered. Well. Sorry, give me 1 second. Okay. He reconsidered. Well, they're saying 20% of Northern California is still hanging in there, which means probably 10, but the food-producing regions are gone. That's terrible. It was, of course, but instead of horror and terror and grief, all Marty felt was a kind of benumbed dismay. You could say that, Gus agreed, especially with the Midwest turning to charcoal and the southern half of Florida now basically swampland fit only for alligators. I hope you've got a lot of food in your pantry and freezer, because now all the major food-producing regions of this country are gone. Same with Europe. It's already famine time in Asia. Millions dead there, bubonic plague, I'm hearing. They sat in Marty's driveway, watching more people walking back from downtown, many dressed in suits and ties. A woman in her pretty pink suit was trudging along in sneakers, carrying her heels in one hand. Marty thought her name was Andrea something, lived a street or two over. Hadn't Felicia told him she worked at Midwest Trust? And the bees, Gus continued. They were in trouble even 10 years ago, but now they're completely gone, except for a few hives down in South America. No more honey, honey. Without them to pollinate whatever crops might be left. Excuse me, Marty said. He got out of the car and trotted to catch up with the woman in the pink suit. Andrea? Are you Andrea? She turned warily, lifting her shoes as if she might have to use one of the heels to ward him off. Marty understood. There were plenty of loosely wrapped people around these days. He stopped 5 feet away. I'm Felicia Anderson's husband. Ex, actually, but husband sounded less potentially dangerous. I think you and Phil know each other? We do. I was on the neighborhood watch committee with her. What can I do for you, Mr. Anderson? I've had a long walk and my car stuck in what appears to be a terminal traffic jam downtown. As for the bank, it's leaning. Leaning, Marty repeated. In his mind he saw an image of the Leaning Tower of Pisa, with Chuck Krent's retirement photo on top. It's on the edge of the sinkhole, and although it hasn't fallen in, it looks very unsafe to me. Sure to be condemned, I suppose that's the end of the job, the end of my job, at least in the downtown branch, but I don't really care. I just want to go home and put my feet up. I was curious about the billboard in the bank building. Have you seen it? How could I miss it? She asked. I work there after all. I've also seen the graffiti, which is everywhere. We love you, Chuck. Chuck lives. Chuck forever. And the ads on TV. Really? Marty thought of what he'd seen on Netflix last night, just before it went away. At the time, he dismissed it as a particularly annoying pop-up ad. Well, the local stations, anyways. Maybe it's different on cable, but we don't get that anymore. Not since July. Us either. Now that he'd begun the fiction that he was still part of an us, it seemed best to carry on with it. Just Channel 8 and Channel 10. Andrea nodded. No more ads for cars or Eliquis or Bob's Discount Furniture. Just Charles Krantz, 39 great years. Thanks, Chuck. Full minute of that, and then back to our regularly scheduled reruns. Very peculiar, but these days, what isn't? Now I really want to get home. This Charles Krantz isn't associated with your bank? Retiring from the bank? She paused for just a moment, before continuing her homeward trudge, carrying high heels she would not need that day. Perhaps ever again. I don't know Charles Krantz from Adam. He must have worked in the Omaha headquarters. Although from what I understand, Omaha is just a great big ashtray these days. Marty watched her go. So did Gus Wilfung, who had joined them. Gus nodded at the glum parade of returning workers who would no longer get to their jobs, selling, trading, banking, waiting on tables, making deliveries. They look like refugees, Gus said. Yeah, Marty said. They kind of do. Hey, you remember asking me about my food supplies? Gus nodded. I have quite a few cans of soup, also some basmati and rice arani. Cheerios, I believe, and as for the freezer, I think I might have 6 TV dinners and half a pint of Ben & Jerry's. You don't sound concerned. Marty shrugged. What good would that do? But see, it's interesting, Gus said. We were all concerned at first. We wanted answers. People went to Washington and protested. Remember when they knocked over the White House fence and those college kids got shot? Yeah. It was the government overthrow in Russia and the 4-day war between India and Pakistan. There's a volcano in Germany. For Christ's sake, Germany. We told each other all this would blow over, but that doesn't seem to be happening, does it? No, Marty agreed. Although he'd just gotten up, he felt tired. Very. Not blowing over, blowing harder. Then there's the suicides. Marty nodded. Felicia sees them every day. I think the suicides will slow down, Gus said, and people will just wait. For what? For the end, pal. The end of everything. We've been going through the 5 stages of grief, don't you get it? Now we've arrived at the last one. Acceptance. Marty said nothing. He could think of nothing to say. There's so little curiosity now, and all this, Gus waved an arm, it came out of nowhere. I mean, we know the environment was going into dogs. I think even the right-wing nutjob secretly believed in it. But this is 60 different varieties of shit, all at once. He gave Marty a look that was almost pleading. In how long? A year? 14 months? Yes, Marty said. Sucks. Seemed to be the only word that fit. Overhead, they heard a droning sound and looked up. The big jets flying in and out of the municipal airport were few and far between these days, but this was a small plane, bumbling along in the unusually clear sky and belching a stream of white from its tail. The plane twisted and banked, rose and fell. The smoke, or whatever chemical it was, forming letters. Huh, Gus said, craning. Skywriting plane. Haven't seen one since I was a kid. Charles, the plane wrote, then Krantz. And then, of course, 39 great years. The name was already starting to fuzz out as the plane wrote, Thanks, Chuck. What the fuck? Gus said. My sentiments exactly, Marty said. He had skipped breakfast, so when he went back inside, Marty microwaved one of his frozen dinners. A Marie Callender's chicken pot pie, quite tasty, and took it into the living room to watch TV. But the only 2 stations he could pull in were showing the photograph of Charles Chuck Krantz, sitting at his desk with his pen at the eternal ready. Marty stared at it while he ate his pot pie, then killed the idiot box and went back to bed. It seemed the most sensible thing to do. He slept for most of the day, and although he didn't dream of her, at least that he could remember, he woke up thinking of Felicia. He wanted to see her, and when he did, he would ask if he could sleep over. Maybe even stay. 60 different varieties of shit, Gus had said, and all at once. If this really was the end, he didn't want to face it alone. Harvest Acres. The tidy little development where Felicia now lived was 3 miles away, and Marty had no intention of risking the drive in his car, so he put on his sweatpants and sneakers. It was a beautiful late afternoon for walking, the sky still an unblemished blue, and plenty of people were out and about. A few looked as if they were enjoying the sunshine, but most just looked down at their feet. There was little talk even among those who were walking in pairs or trios. On Park Drive, one of the East Side's main thoroughfares, all 4 lanes were jammed with cars, most of them empty. Marty wove his way between them, and on the other side encountered an elderly man in a tweed suit and matching trilby hat. He was sitting on the curb and knocking his pipe out into the gutter. He saw Marty watching him and smiled. Just taking a rest, he said. Walked downtown to look at the sinkhole and take a few pictures with my phone. Thought one of the local television stations might be interested, but they all seemed to be off the air. Except for pictures of that fellow Krantz, that is. Yes, Marty said. It's all Chuck, all the time now. Any idea who? None. I've asked 24 people at least. Nobody knows. Our man Krantz appears to be the Oz of the apocalypse. Marty laughed. Where are you heading, sir? Harvest Acres. Nice little enclave, off the beaten track. He reached into his jacket, produced a pouch of tobacco, and began reloading his pipe. I'm going there myself. My ex lives there. Maybe we could walk together. The elderly gent got up with a wince. As long as you don't rush along. He lit his pipe, puffing away. Arthritis. I have pills for it, but the more arthritis sets in, the less they do. Sucks, Marty said. You set the pace. The old guy did. It was a slow one. His name was Samuel Yarbrough. He was owner and chief undertaker of the Yarbrough Funeral Home. But my real interest is meteorology, he said. Dreamed of being a television weatherman in my salad days, perhaps even on one of the networks, but they all seem to have a passion for young women with... He put his cupped hands in front of his chest. I keep up, though. Read the journals, and I can tell you an amazing thing if you want to hear. Sure. They came to a bus bench. Stenciled on the back was Charles Chuck Krantz. 39 great years. Thanks, Chuck. Sam Yarbrough took a seat and patted the space next to him. Marty sat. It was downwind of Yarbrough's pipe, but that was okay. Marty liked the smell. Do you know how people say there's 24 hours in a day? Yarbrough asked. And 7 days in a week. Everybody knows that, even little kids. Well, everybody's wrong. There are 23 hours and 56 minutes in a stellar day, plus a few odd seconds. Were? Correct. Based on my calculations, which I assure you I can back up, there are now 24 hours and 2 minutes in a day. Do you know what that means, Mr. Anderson? Marty thought it over. Are you telling me the Earth's rotation is slowing down? Exactly. Yarbrough took his pipe out of his mouth and gestured at the people passing them on the sidewalk. The numbers were thinning now that afternoon had begun to edge into twilight. I'll bet many of those folks think the multiple disasters we're facing have a single cause rooted in what we have done to the Earth's environment. It's not so. I would be the first to admit that we have treated our mother, yes, she's the mother of us all, very badly. Certainly molested her, if not outright raped her, but we're puny compared to the great clock of the universe. Puny. No. Whatever is happening is much larger than environmental degradation. Maybe it's Chuck Krantz's fault, Marty said. Yarbrough looked at him in surprise, then laughed. Back to him, eh? Chuck Krantz is retiring and the entire population of Earth, not to mention the Earth itself, is retiring with him? Is that your thesis? Gotta blame something, Marty said, smiling. Or it's someone. Sam Yarbrough stood up, put a hand to the small of his back, stretched and winced. With apologies to Mr. Spock, that's illogical. I suppose 39 years is quite a span in terms of human life, almost half, but the last ice age happened quite a bit longer ago. Not to mention the age of the dinosaurs. Shall we mosey? They moseyed, their shadows stretching ahead of them. Marty was mentally scolding himself for having slept away the best part of a beautiful day. Yarbrough was moving ever so slowly. When they finally reached the brick arch, marking the entrance to Harvest Acres, the old mortician sat down again. I think I'll watch the sunset while I wait for the arthritis to settle a bit. Would you care to join me? Marty shook his head. Think I'll go on. Check the X, Yarbrough said. I understand. It was nice speaking with you, Mr. Anderson. Marty started beneath the arch, then turned back. Charles Krantz means something, he said. I'm sure of it. You could be right, Sam said, puffing on his pipe, but the slowing of the Earth's rotation, nothing's bigger than that, my friend. The central thoroughfare of the Harvest Acres development was a graceful tree-lined parabola, from which shorter streets diverged. The streetlights, which looked to Marty like those in illustrated Dickens novels, had come on, casting a moonlight glow. As Marty approached Fern Lane, where Felicia lived, a little girl on roller skates appeared, banking gracefully around the corner. She was wearing baggy red shorts and a sleeveless tee with somebody's face on it. Maybe a rock star or a rapper. Marty guessed her age at 10 or 11, and seeing her cheered him enormously. A little girl on roller skates. What could be more normal in this abnormal day? This abnormal year? Yo, he said. Yo, she agreed, but turned neatly on her skates, perhaps ready to flee if he turned out to be one of the Chester the Molester types that her mother had no doubt warned her about. I'm gonna go see my ex-wife, Marty said, standing where he was. Felicia Anderson. Or maybe she's back to Gordon now. That was her maiden name. She lives on Fern Lane, number 19. The little girl pivoted on her skates, an effortless move that would have left Marty flat on his ass. Oh yeah, maybe I've seen you before. Blue Priest? That's me. If you come to see her, why is she your ex? Still like her. You don't fight? We used to. We get along better now that we're exes. Miss Gordon gives us ginger snap cookies sometimes. Me and my little brother, Ronnie. I like Oreos better, but that's the way the cookie crumbles, right? Marty said. Nah, ginger snaps don't crumble. At least not until you crunch them up in your mouth. At that moment, the street lights went out, turning the main drag into a lagoon of shadows. All the houses went dark at the same time. There had been outages in the city before, some as long as 18 hours, but the power had always come back. Marty wasn't sure it would this time. Maybe, but he had a feeling that electricity, which he and everyone else had taken for granted all his life, might have gone the way of the internet. Booger, said the little girl. You better go home, Marty said. With no streetlights, it's too dark for skating. Mister, is everything going to be all right? Although he had no kids of his own, he taught them for 20 years and felt that, although you should tell them the truth once they reached the age of 16, a kind-hearted lie was often the right way to go when they were as young as the girl. Sure. But look, she said and pointed. He followed her trembling finger to the house in the corner of Fern Lane. A face was appearing in the darkened bay window overlooking a small patch of lawn. It appeared in glowing white lines and shadows like ectoplasm at a seance. Smiling moon face, black-framed glasses, pen poised over it. Charles Krantz. Below it, 39 great years. Thanks, Chuck. It's happening to all of them, she whispered. She was right. Chuck Krantz was rising on the front windows of every house on Fern Lane. Marty turned and saw an arc of Krantz faces stretching out behind him on the main avenue. Dozens of Chucks, maybe hundreds, thousands if this phenomenon was happening all over the city. Go home, Marty said, not smiling anymore. Go home to your mom and dad, Poppet. Do it right now. She skated away, her skates rumbling on the sidewalk and her hair flying out behind her. He could see the red shorts, then she was lost in the thickening shadows. Marty walked quickly in the direction she had gone, observed by the smiling face of Charles Chuck Krantz in every window. Chuck in his white shirt and dark tie. It was like being watched by a horde of ghost clowns. Marty was glad there was no moon. What if Chuck's face had appeared there? How would he deal with that? He gave up walking at number 13. He ran the rest of the way to Felicia's little two-room bungalow, pounded up the front walk, and knocked on the door. He waited. Suddenly, sure she was still at the hospital, maybe working a double, but then he heard her footsteps. The door opened. She was holding a candle. It underlit her frightened face. Marty, thank God. Do you see them? Yes, the guy was in her front window too. Chuck, smiling, looking like every accountant who ever lived. A man who wouldn't say boo to a goose. They just started showing up. I know, I saw. Is it just here? I think it's everywhere. I think it's almost... And she was hugging him, pulling him aside, and he was glad she hadn't given him a chance to say the other two words. The end. This is a very strange book. It's kind of scary, kind of goofy. It's really strange. I don't know what to make of it at the moment. Like, it's like it was written, I guess it makes sense that it was written in 2020. According to someone who did the research in chat. This was written or published in 2020. The end of the world, holes popping out of everything. Like, it's... What is going on? What the hell's... What's happening? I don't know, whatever. Anyways. I suppose we'll continue on. Douglas Beaton, Associate Professor of Philosophy in Ithaca College's Department of Philosophy and Religion, sits in a hospital room, waiting for his brother-in-law to die. The only sounds are the steady beep, beep, beep of the heart monitor, and Chuck's slow and increasingly labored breathing. Most of the machinery has been turned off. Doug turns to see Brian in the doorway, still wearing his leather jacket and backpack. You left school early? Doug asks. With permission. Mom texted me that she was going to let them turn off the machines. Did they? Yes. When? An hour ago. Where's Mom now? In the chapel on the first floor. She's praying for his soul. And probably praying that she did the right thing, Doug thinks. Because even when the priest tells you, yes, it's fine, let God take care of the rest, it feels wrong somehow. I'm supposed to text her if she looks like he's... Brian's uncle shrugs. Brian approaches the bed and looks down at his father's still white face. With his black-framed glasses put aside, the boy thinks his dad doesn't look old enough to have a son who's a freshman in high school. He looks like a high school kid himself. He picks up his father's hand and plants a brief kiss on the crescent-shaped scar there. Guys as young as him aren't supposed to die, Brian says. He speaks softly as if his father can hear. Jesus, Uncle Doug, he just turned 39 last winter. Come sit down, Doug says, and pats the empty chair next to him. That's Mom's seat. When she comes back, you can give it to her. Brian shucks his backpack and sits down. How long do you think it'll be? The doctor said he could go any time. Before tomorrow, almost certainly. You know the machines were helping him breathe, right? And there were IVs to feed him? He's not in any pain. That part is over. Glioblastoma, Brian says bitterly. When he turns to his uncle, he's crying. Why would God take my dad, Uncle Doug? Explain it to me. I can't. God's ways are a mystery. Well, fuck the mystery, the boy says. Mysteries should stay in storybooks where they belong. Uncle Doug nods and puts an arm around Brian's shoulders. I know it's hard, kiddo. It's hard for me too, but it's all I got. Life's a mystery, so is death. They fall silent, listening to the steady beep, 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 and the rasp as Charles Krantz, Chuck, to his wife and his wife's brother and his friends, takes one slow breath after another. His body's last interactions with the world, each inhale and exhale managed, like the beat of his heart, by a failing brain, where a few operations still continue. The man who spent his working life in the accounting department of the Midwest Trust is now doing his final tallies. Small income, large disbursements. Banks are supposed to be heartless, but they really loved him there, Brian says. They sent a ton of flowers. The nurses put them in that solarium thing because he's not supposed to have flowers. What did they think? That it was going to kick off an allergy attack or something? He loved working there, Doug says. It wasn't a big deal in the grand scheme of things, I suppose. He was never going to win a Nobel Prize or get a Medal of Freedom from the president, but he did love it. Dancing too, Brian says. He loved dancing. He was good. So was Mom. They could really cut a rug, she used to say, but she also said he was better. Doug laughs. He used to call himself the poor man's Fred Astaire, and model trains when he was a boy. His Zadie had a set. You know, his granddad? You know his granddad? Yeah, Brian says. I know about his Zadie. He had a good life, Bree. Bri? Yeah, Bri. Not enough of it, Brian says. He'll never get to take the train across Canada like he wanted to, or visit Australia. He wanted that too. He's never going to see me graduate high school. He's never going to have the retirement party where people make funny speeches and give him a gold... He wiped his eyes on the sleeve of his jacket. A gold watch. Doug squeezes his nephew's shoulders. Brian speaks looking down at his clasped hands. I want to believe in God, Unc, and I sort of do, but I don't understand why it has to be this way. Why God would let it be this way. It's a mystery. You're the hotshot philosophy guy, and that's the best you can do? Yes, because death brings philosophy to ruin, Doug thinks. You know what they say, Brian. Death takes the best of us, and death takes the rest of us. Brian tries to smile. If that's supposed to be comforting, you need to try harder. Doug seems not to have heard. He's looking at his brother-in-law, who is, in Doug's mind, an actual brother, who has given his sister a good life. Who helped him get a start in business, and that's really the least of it. They had some fun times together. Not enough, but looks like they'll have to do. The human brain is finite, no more than a sponge of tissue inside a cage of bone, but the mind within the brain is infinite. Its storage capacity is colossal, its imaginative reach beyond our ability to comprehend. I think when a man or woman dies, a whole world falls to ruin. The world that person knew and believed in. Think of that, kiddo. Billions of people on Earth, and each one of those billions with a world inside. The Earth their minds have conceived. And now my dad's world is dying. But not ours, Doug says, and gives his nephew another squeeze. Ours will go on a little longer. And your mother's. We need to be strong for her, Brian. As strong as we can. They fall silent, looking at the dying man in the hospital bed, listening to the beep, beep, beep of the monitor, and the slow breaths Chuck Krantz inhales and exhales. Once it stops, his chest remains flat. Brian tenses. Then it rises again, with another of those agonal rasps. Text Mom, Brian says, right now. Doug already has his phone out, way ahead of you, and he types. Better come, sis. Brian's here. I think Chuck is near the end. It is Act 3, right? I'm assuming things will become clear in Act 1 and 2. Yes, so the acts are in reverse order. So we started with Act 3. This is Act 3, Part 3. Yeah. Marty and Felicia went out on the back lawn. They sat in chairs they carried down from the patio. The power was all over the city now. The power was out all over the city now, and the stars were very bright. Brighter than Marty had ever seen them since he was a boy growing up in Nebraska. Back then, he'd had a small telescope and conned the universe from his attic window. There's Aquila, he said, the eagle. There's Cygnus, the swan, see it? Yes, and there's the North Star. She stopped. Marty, did you see? Yes, he said. It just went out, and there goes Mars. Goodbye, Red Planet. Marty, I'm scared. Was Gus Wilfung looking up at the sky tonight? Andrea, the woman who'd been out in the neighborhood watch committee with Felicia? Samuel Yarbrough, the undertaker? What about the little girl in the red shorts? Starlight, star bright. Last stars I see tonight. Marty took her hand. I am too. Ginny, Brian, and Doug stand beside Chuck Krantz's bed. Their hands joined. The way it is Chuck, husband, father, accountant, dancer, fan of TV crime shows, takes his last 2 or 3 breaths. 39 years, Doug says. 39 great years. Thanks, Chuck. Marty and Felicia sat with their faces turned up to the sky, watching the stars go out. First in 1s and 2s, and then by the dozens, then by the hundreds, as the Milky Way rolled away into darkness. Marty turned to his ex-wife. I love black. Oh. Okay. What? So... Okay, so it's in reverse order. We get Act 3 first. So I think the world is ending as Chuck's life ends. Is that what it is? Like Chuck's life is tied to the world? The 39 great years were his life and not him working for a company. Yeah, and also it's the world is ending right as he dies. Which is really interesting. The way it's written. Like the concept I don't think is that interesting. The concept of like when you die, the world dies is kind of whatever to me, but the way it's being written, I kind of like, so let's see. Act 2, Buskers. With the help of his friend Mac, who has an old van, Jared Frank sets up his drum kit in his favorite spot on Boylston Street between Walgreens and the Apple Store. He has a good feeling about today. It's Thursday afternoon, the weather is fucking gorgeous, and the streets are thronged with people looking forward to the weekend, which is always better than the weekend itself. For Thursday afternoon people, that anticipation is pure. Friday afternoon people have to put anticipation aside and get to work having fun. All good, Mac asks him. Yes, thanks. My 10%'s all the thanks I want, bro. Mac heads out, probably to the comic store, maybe to Barnes & Noble, then to the Common to read whatever he's bought. A big reader is Mac. Jared will call him when it's time to pack up. Mac will bring his van. Jared puts down a battered top hat, scuffed velvet, tattered silk grosgrain band he bought for 75 cents in a second-hand shop in Cambridge, then places the sign in front of it that reads, "This is a magic hat. Give freely and your contribution will double." He drops in a couple of dollar bills to give people the right idea. The weather's warm for early October, which allows him to dress as he likes for his Boylston gigs. Sleeveless tee with frankly drums in the front, khaki shorts, ratty Converse high tops without socks, but even on chilly days. He usually shucks his coat if he's wearing one, because when you find the beat, you feel the heat. Sorry, before we continue reading, I'm going to highlight this bit, right? Very quickly, as I was reading, I sort of had a thought about how or what the story could encompass. Is it the fact that Marty and Felicia are part of Chuck's imagination? A story he's writing? Well, that can't be right. He's an accountant, not like a storyteller, is he? I don't know. It's weird. Anyways, let's come back to Act 2. Jared unfolds his stool and gives a preparatory paradiddle across the drumheads. A few people glance at him, but most simply sweep on by, lost in their talk of friends, dinner plans, where to get a drink, and the day gone by to the mystery dump where spent days go. Meanwhile, it's a long time until 8 o'clock, which is when a BPD car usually slides over to the curb with a cop leaning out the passenger window to tell him it's time to pack it up. Then he'll call Mac. For now, there's money to be made. He sets up his hi-hat and crash cymbal and adds the cowbell because it feels like a cowbell kind of day. Jared and Mac work part-time at Dr. Records on Newbury Street, but on a good day, Jared can almost make as much busking. And busk drumming on sunny Boylston Street is certainly better than the patrol-y atmosphere of the docks, and long conversations with the record nerds looking for Dave Van Ronk on Folkways or Dead Rarities on Paisley vinyl. Jared always wants to ask them where they were when Tower Records was going under. He's a dropout from Juilliard, which he calls, with apologies to K. Kaiser, the College of Musical Knowledge. He lasted 3 semesters, but in the end it wasn't for him. They wanted you to think about what you were doing, and as far as Jared is concerned, the beat is your friend and thinking is the enemy. He sits in on the occasional gig, but bands don't interest him much. Although he never says it, okay, maybe once or twice while drunk, he thinks maybe music itself is the enemy. He rarely thinks about these issues once he's in the groove. Once he's in the groove, music is a ghost. Only the drums matter then, the beat. He starts warming up, going easy at first, slow tempo, no cowbell, no tom, and no rim shots, no minding that magic hat stays empty, except for his 2 crumpled dollars and a quarter flipped in, contemptuously, by a kid on a skateboard. There is time. There is a way in. Like anticipating the joys of an autumn weekend in Boston, finding the inn is half the fun, maybe even most of it. Janice Halliday is on her way home from 7 hours at Paper and Page, trudging down Boylston with her head lowered and her purse clasped close. She may walk all the way to Fenway before she starts looking for the nearest tea station, because right now, walking is all she wants. Her boyfriend of 16 months just broke up with her. Dumped her, not to put too fine a point on it. Kicked her to the curb. He did it the modern way, by text. "We are just not right for each other," sad face. Then, "You will always be in my heart!" Exclamation mark heart emoji. Then, "Friends forever, okay?" Smiley face, fingers crossed. Not right for each other probably means he met someone and will spend the weekend with her picking apples in New Hampshire and then later on fucking in some B&B. He won't see Janice tonight, or ever, in the smart pink blouse and red wrap skirt she's wearing, unless she texts him a photo with a message reading, "This is what you are missing, you pile of crap." Oh, God. It was totally unexpected. That's what set her back on her heels, like having a door slammed in your face just as you were getting ready to walk through it. The weekend, which seemed full of possibility this morning, now looks to her like the entrance to a hollow, slowly turning barrel into which she must crawl. She's not down to work at P&P on Saturday, but maybe she'll call Maybelline and see if she can pick up Saturday morning at least. Sunday, the store is closed. Sunday best not considered, at least for now. Friends forever my ass, she says this to her purse because she's looking down. She isn't in love with him, never even kidded herself that she was, but it's a dismaying shock just the same. He was a nice guy, at least she thought so. A pretty good lover and fun to be with, as they say. Now she's 22 and dumped and it sucks. She supposes she'll have some wine when she gets home and cry. Crying might be good. Therapeutic. Maybe she'll cue up one of her big band playlists and dance around the room. Dancing with myself, as the Billy Idol song says. She loved to dance in high school and those Friday night dances were happy times. Maybe she can recapture a little of that happiness. No, she thinks. Those tunes and those memories will just make you cry more. High school was a long time ago. This is the real world, where guys break up with you without warning. Up ahead a couple of blocks, she hears drumming. Charles Krantz Chuck, to his friends, makes his way along Boylston Street dressed in the armor of accountancy. Gray suit, white shirt, blue tie. His black Samuel Windsor shoes are inexpensive but sturdy. His briefcase swings by his side. He takes no notice of the chattering after-work throngs eddying around him. He's in Boston, attending a week-long conference titled Banking in the 21st Century. He has been sent by his bank, Midwest Trust, all expenses paid. Very nice, not least because he's never visited Beantown before. The conference is being held at a hotel that is perfect for accountants, clean and fairly cheap. Chuck has enjoyed the speakers and the panels. He was on one panel and is scheduled to be on another before the conference ends at noon tomorrow, but had no wish to spend his off-duty hours in the company of 70 other accountants. He speaks their language, but likes to think he speaks others as well. At least he did, although some of the vocabulary is now lost. Now his sensible Samuel Windsor Oxfords are taking him for an afternoon walk. Not very exciting, but quite pleasant. Quite pleasant is enough these days. His life is narrower than the one he once hoped for, but he's made his peace with that. He understands that narrowing is the natural order of things. There comes a time when you realize you're never going to be the President of the United States and settle for being President of the Jaycees instead. And there's a bright side. He has a wife to whom he is scrupulously faithful, and an intelligent, good-humored son in middle school. He also has only 9 months to live, although he doesn't know it yet. Excuse me. The seeds of his end, the place where life narrows to a final point, are planted deep, where no surgeon's knife will ever go, and they have lately begun to awaken. Soon they will bear black fruit. To those passing him, the college girls in their colorful skirts, the college boys with their red socks caps turned around, and the impeccably dressed Asian Americans from Chinatown, the matrons with their shopping bags, the Vietnam vet holding out a huge ceramic cup with an American flag and the motto, "These colors don't run," on its side. Chuck Krantz must surely look like white America personified, buttoned up and tucked in and all about chasing the dollar. He is those things, yes, the industrious ant trundling its preordained path through flocks of pleasure-seeking grasshoppers, but he's other things as well, or was. He's thinking about their little sister. Was her name Rachel or Regina? Reba? Renee? He can't seem to remember for sure, only that she was the lead guitarist's little sister. During his junior year in high school, long before he became an industrious ant working in that hill known as Midwest Trust, Chuck was the lead singer in a band called the Retros. They called themselves that because they played a lot of stuff from the 60s and 70s, heavy on British groups like the Stones and the Searchers and the Clash because most of those tunes are simple. They steered clear of the Beatles, where the songs were full of weird chords like modified sevenths. Chuck got to be the lead singer for 2 reasons. Although he couldn't play an instrument, he could carry a tune, and his grandpa had an old SUV which he allowed Chuck to drive in drive to gigs as long as they weren't too far. The retros were bad to start with, and only mediocre when they broke up at the end of junior year, but they had, as the rhythm guitarist's father once put it, made that quantum leap to palatability. And really, it was hard to do too much damage when you were playing stuff like Bits and Pieces, Dave Clark 5, and Rockaway Bridge, Ramones. Chuck's tenor voice was pleasing enough in an unremarkable way, and he wasn't afraid to scream or go falsetto when the occasion called for it. But what he really liked were the instrumental breaks, because then he could dance and strut his way across the stage like a jagger, sometimes wagging the mic stand between his legs in a way he considered suggestive. He could also moonwalk, which always drew applause. The retros were a garage band that sometimes practiced in an actual garage and sometimes in the lead guitarist's downstairs rec room. On those latter occasions, the lead's little sister, Ruth, Reagan, usually came diddy-bopping down the stairs in her Bermuda shorts. She'd station herself between their two Fender amps, waggle her hips and butt in exaggerated fashion, put her fingers in her ears, and stick out her tongue. Once, when they were taking a break, she sidled up to Chuck and whispered, "Just between you and me, you sing like old people fuck." Charles Krantz, the future accountant, had whispered back, "Like you'd know, monkey butt." Little sister ignored this. "I like to watch you dance, though. You do it like a white guy, but still." Little sister, also white, also liked to dance. Sometimes after practice, she would put on one of her homemade cassettes, and he'd dance with her while the other guys in the band hooted and made semi-smart remarks. The two of them doing their Michael Jackson moves and laughing like loons. Chuck's thinking about teaching little sister Ramona how to moonwalk when he first hears the drums. Some guy's banging a basic rock beat that the retros might have played back in the days of Hang On Sloppy and Brand New Cadillac. At first he thinks it's all in his head, maybe even the start of one of the migraines that have plagued him lately. But then the crowd of pedestrians on the next block clears long enough for him to see a kid in a sleeveless tee, sitting on his little stool and beating out that tasty old-time rhythm. Chuck thinks, where's the little sister to dance with when you need one? Jared's been on the job for 10 minutes now and has nothing to show for it but that one sarcastic quarter-flipped into magic hat by the skateboard kid. It makes no sense to him on a pleasant Thursday afternoon like this with the weekend just around the bend. He should have at least $5 in the hat by now. He doesn't need the money to keep him starving, but man doesn't live by food and rent alone. Man has to keep his self-image in order, and drumming here in Boylston is a big part of his. He is on stage. He is performing, soloing, in fact. What's in the hat is how he judges who is digging the performance and who is not. He twirls his sticks between his fingertips, sets himself, and plays the intro to My Sharona. But it's not right. Sounds canned. He sees a Mr. Businessman type coming toward him, briefcase swinging like a short pendulum, and something about him, God knows what, makes Jared want to announce his approach. He slips first into a reggae beat, then something slinkier, like a cross between I Heard It Through the Grapevine and Susie Q. For the first time since running that quick paradiddle to gauge the sound of his kit, Jared feels a spark and understands why he wanted the cowbell today. He begins to whack it on the offbeat, and what he's drumming morphs into something like that old joint by the Champs, Tequila. It's pretty cool. The groove has arrived, and the groove is like a road you want to follow. He could speed the beat up, get some tom in there, but he's watching Mr. Businessman, and that seems wrong for this dude. Jared has no idea why Mr. Businessman has become the groove's focal point, and doesn't care. Sometimes it just happens that way. The groove turns into a story. He imagines Mr. Businessman on vacation in one of those places where you get a little pink umbrella in your drink. Maybe he's with his wife. Or maybe it's his personal assistant, an ash blonde in a turquoise bikini. And this is what they're hearing. This is the drummer warming up for the night's gig before the tiki torches are lit. He believes Mr. Businessman will just go past on his way to his Mr. Businessman hotel. The chances that he'll feed Magic Hat hovering somewhere between slim and none. When he's gone, Jared will switch to something else, give the cowbell a rest, but for now this beat is the right one. But instead of floating on by, Mr. Businessman stops. He's smiling. Jared gives him a grin and nods to the top hat on the pavement, never missing a beat. Mr. Businessman doesn't seem to notice him, and he doesn't feed the hat. He drops his briefcase between his black Mr. Businessman shoes instead and begins moving his hips side to side with the beat. Just hips, everything else stays still. His face is poker. He seems to be looking at a spot directly over Jared's head. "Go, man," a young man remarks, and chinks some coins into the hat. For the gently jiving Mr. Businessman, not the beat, but that's okay. Jared begins working the hi-hat in quick, tender strokes, teasing it, almost caressing it. With his other hand, he begins knocking the cowbell on the offbeat, using the kick pedal to add a little bottom. It's nice. Guy in the grey suit looks like a banker, but that hip sway is something else. He raises a hand and begins ticking his forefinger to the beat. On the back of the hand is a small crescent-shaped scar. Chuck hears the beat change, becoming a little more exotic, and for a moment he almost comes back to himself and walks away. Then he thinks, fuck it, no law against dancing a little on the sidewalk. He steps back from his briefcase so he won't trip, then puts his hands on his moving hips and does a jivey clockwise turn like an about face. It's how he used to do it back in the day when the band was playing Satisfaction or Walking the Dog. Someone laughs, someone else applauds, and he goes back the other way with the tail of his coat flying. He's thinking about dancing with the little sister. Little sister was a booger with a dirty mouth, but she could sure get down on it. Chuck himself hasn't got down on it, that mystical satisfying it, in years, but every move feels perfect. He lifts one leg and spins on the other heel. Then he clasps his hands behind his back like a schoolboy called on to recite and moonwalks in place on the pavement in front of his briefcase. The drummer goes, "Yow, Daddy," in surprise and delight. He picks up the pace, now going from the cowbell to the floor tom with his left hand, working the kick pedal, never losing the metallic sighing from the hi-hat. People are gathering, money is pouring into magic hat, paper as well as metal. Something is happening here. Two young men in matching berets and rainbow coalition tees are at the front of the little crowd. One of them tosses what looks like a 5 into the hat and yells, "Go, man, go!" Chuck doesn't need the encouragement. He's into it now. Banking in the 21st century has slipped his mind. He frees the button in his suit coat, brushes the coat behind him with the back of his hands, hooks his thumbs into his belt like a gunslinger and does a modified split, out and back. He follows with a quick step and turn. The drummer is laughing and nodding. "You the cheese," he says. "You the cheese, Daddy." The crowd is growing. The hat is filling. Chuck's heart isn't just beating in his chest, but thrumming. Good way to have a heart attack, but he doesn't care. If his wife saw him doing this, she'd shit a brick, and he doesn't care. His son would be embarrassed, but his son isn't here. He put his right shoe in his left calf, spins again, and when he comes back front and center, he sees a pretty young woman standing next to the beret guys. She's wearing a filmy pink blouse and a red wrap shirt. She's staring at him with wide, fascinated eyes. Chuck holds his hand out to her, smiling, snapping his fingers. "Come on," he says. "Come on, little sister, dance." Jared doesn't think she will. She looks like the shy type, but she walks slowly toward the man in the grey suit. Maybe Magic Hat really is magic. "Dance," one of the beret guys says, and others pick it up, clapping along with the beat Jared is laying down. "Dance, dance, dance." Janice breaks into a what the hell smile, tosses her purse down beside Chuck's briefcase, and takes his hand. Jared drops what he's been doing and turns into Charlie Watts, hammering like a soldier. Mr. Businessman twirls the girl, puts a hand on her trim waist, draws her to him, and quick steps her past the drum kit, almost to the corner of the Walgreens building. Janice pulls away, waving her finger in a naughty gesture, that comes back and grasps both of Chuck's hands. As if they had practiced this 100 times, he does another modified split, and she shoots between his legs, a daring move that opens the wrap skirt to the top of one pretty thigh. There are a few gasps as she props herself on one tented hand and then springs back up. She's laughing. "No more," Chuck says, patting his chest. "I can't." She springs to him and puts her hands on his shoulders. And he can, after all. He catches her by the waist, turning her on his hip, and then setting her neatly on the pavement. He lifts her left hand and she spins beneath it like a hopped-up ballerina. There must be over 100 people watching now. They crowd the sidewalk and spill into the street. They burst into fresh applause. Jared runs the drums one time, hits the cymbals, then holds up his sticks triumphantly. There's another round of applause. Chuck and Janice are looking at each other, both out of breath. Chuck's hair, just starting to grey, is stuck to his sweaty forehead. "What are we doing?" Janice asks. Now that the drums have stopped, she looks dazed. "I don't know," Chuck says. "But that's the best thing that's happened to me in I don't know how long." Magic Hat is full to overflowing. "More," someone shouts, and the crowd picks it up. There are many phones being held up, ready to catch the next dance, and the girl looks like she would, but she's young. Chuck has danced out. He looks at the drummer and shakes his head. The drummer gives him a nod to show he understands. Chuck is wondering how many people were quick enough to video that first dance, and what his wife will think if he sees it, or his son. And suppose it goes viral? Unlikely, but if it does, if it gets back to the bank, what will they think when they see the man they sent to a conference in Boston shaking his booty on Boylston Street with a woman young enough to be his daughter, or someone else's sister? Just what did he think he was doing? No more, folks, the drummer calls. We gotta quit while we're ahead. And I need to get home, the girl says. Not yet, says the drummer. Please. 20 minutes later, they're sitting on a bench facing the duck pond in Boston Common. Jared called Mac. Chuck and Janice helped Jared pack up his kit and load it into the back of the van. A few people hung out, congratulating them, offering high fives, adding a few more bucks to the overflowing hat. When they're rolling, Chuck and Janice sitting side by side in the back seat, their feet planted among stacks of comic books. Max says they'll never find parking next to the Common. We will today, Jared says. Today is magic. And they do, right across the 4 seasons. Jared counts the cash. Somebody has actually tossed in a 50, maybe the beret guy mistaking it for a 5. There's over $400 in all. Jared has never had such a day, never expected to. He sets aside Mac's 10%. Mac is currently standing at the edge of the pond, feeding the ducks from a package of peanut butter crackers he happened to have in his pocket, then begins to divvy up the rest. Oh no, Janice says when she understands what he's doing. That's yours. Jared shakes his head. Nope, we split it even. By myself, I wouldn't have made half of this much even if I drummed until midnight. Not that the cops would ever allow such a thing. Sometimes I clear $30 and that's on a good day. Chuck has the beginnings of one of his headaches and knows it's apt to be bad by 9 o'clock, but the young man's earnestness makes him laugh just the same. All right, I don't need it, but I guess I earned it. He reaches out and pats Janice's cheek, just as he sometimes used to pat the cheek of the lead singer's potty-mouthed little sister. So did you, young lady. Where did you learn to dance like that? Jared asks Chuck. Well, there was an extracurricular called Twirlers and Spinners back in middle school, but it was my grandma who showed me the best moves. You? He asked Janice. Pretty much the same, she says, and blushes. High school dances. Where did you learn to drum? Self-taught. Like you, he says to Chuck. You were great by yourself, man, but the chick added a whole extra dimension. We could do this for a living, you know it? I really think we could busk our way to fame and fortune. For a mad moment, Chuck actually considers it, and sees the girl is too. Not in a serious way, but in the way you daydream of an alternate life. One where you play pro baseball, or climb Mount Everest, or duet with Bruce Springsteen at a stadium concert. Then Chuck laughs some more and shakes his head. As the girl tucks her third of the take into her purse, she's also laughing. It was really all you, Jared says to Chuck. What made you stop in front of me, and what made you start moving? Chuck thinks that over, then shrugs. He could say it was because he was thinking about that old half-assed band, the Retros, and how he liked to dance across the stage during the instrumental breaks, showing off, swinging that mic stand between his legs. But that's not it. And really, had he ever danced with such élan and freedom even back then, when he had been a teenager, younger and limber, with no headaches and nothing to lose? It was magic, Jenny says. She giggles. She didn't expect to hear that sound coming from her today. Crying, yes. Giggling, no. Like your hat. Matt comes back. Jared, we gotta roll or you're gonna end up spending your take paying for my parking ticket. Jared stands it up. Sure. You don't want to change... Sure you don't want to change career streams, you two? We could bust this town from Beacon Hill to Roxbury. Make a name for ourselves. I've got a conference to attend tomorrow, Chuck says. On Saturday, I'm flying home. I've got a wife and son waiting for me. And I can't do it myself, Janice says, smiling. It would be like Ginger without Fred. I hear that, Jared says and holds out his arms. But you have to get in here before you go. Group hug. They join him. Chuck knows they can smell his sweat. This suit will have to be dry cleaned before he wears it again, and strenuously. And he can smell theirs. It's all right. He thinks the girl nailed it when she used the word magic. Sometimes there's such a thing. Not much, but a little. Like finding a forgotten 20 in the pocket of an old coat. Buskers forever, Jared says. Chuck, Krantz, and Ginny's Halliday repeat it. Buskers forever, Max says. Great. Now let's get out of here before a meter maid shows up, Jer. Chuck tells Janice he's headed to the Boston Hotel, past the Prudential Center, if she's going that way. Janice was... The plan had been to walk all the way to Fenway, brooding about her ex-boyfriend and muttering doleful shit to her purse, but she's changed her mind. She says she'll take the T from Arlington Street. He walks her there, the two of them cutting across the park. At the head of the stairs, she turns to him and says, "Thank you for the dance." He gives her a bow. "It was my pleasure." He watches her until she's out of sight, then heads back down Boylston. He walks slowly because his back hurts, his legs hurt, and his head is throbbing. He can't remember having bad headaches like this in his whole life. Not until a couple of months ago, that is. He supposes if they keep up, he'll have to see a doctor. He supposes he knows what this might be. All that's for later, though, if at all. Tonight he thinks he'll treat himself to a good dinner. Why not? He's earned it. And a glass of wine. On second thought, make it Evian. Wine might intensify his headache. When he's finished his meal, dessert definitely included, he'll call Ginny and tell her that her husband might be the next one-day internet sensation. That probably won't happen. Somewhere right now, someone is undoubtedly filming a dog juggling empty soda bottles, and someone else is memorializing a goat smoking a cigar, but it's better to get out front with it, just in case. As he passes the place where Jared sets up his drums, those two questions recur. Why did you stop to listen, and why did you start to dance? He doesn't know, and would answers make a good thing better? Later, he would lose the ability to walk. Never mind dancing with his little sister on Boylston Street. Later, he will lose the ability to chew food, and his meals will come from a blender. Later, he will lose his grip on the difference between waking and sleeping, and enter a land of pain so great that he will wonder why God made the world. Later, he will forget his wife's name. What he will remember, occasionally, is how he stopped and dropped his briefcase and began to move his hips to the beat of the drums, and he will think that is why God made the world. Just that. Huh. I see. I think I see where this is going. Have a headache right now after having headaches for a few days a week for the past month, and this part of the story is giving me health anxiety. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. You'll be all right. You won't be. You won't die. You're not dying, probably. Okay. It's a nice life is for living answer. I think yeah, that's kind of it. I'm inclined to agree. I think. Anyways, last bit here. We might as well finish this off, I think. Act 1. I contain multitudes. Chuck was looking forward to having a babysitter. His mother promised he could hold her if he was very careful. Of course, he was also looking forward to having parents, but none of that worked out thanks to an icy patch on an I-95 overpass. Much later, in college, he would tell a girlfriend that there were all sorts of novels, movies, and TV shows where a main character's parents died in a car crash, but he was the only person he knew who had had that happen in real life. The girlfriend thought this over, then rendered her verdict. I'm sure it happens all the time, although partners can also be taken in house fires, tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, and avalanches while on ski vacations. To name only a few of the possibilities, and what makes you think you're a main character in anything but your own mind? She was a poet and a sort of nihilist. The relationship only lasted a semester. Chuck wasn't in the car when it went flying upside down from the turnpike overpass because his parents were having a dinner date and he was being babysat by his grandparents, who at that time he was still calling Zadie and Booby. This mostly ended in the 3rd grade where kids made fun of him and he reverted to the more all-American grandma and grandpa. Albie and Sarah Krantz lived just a mile down the road, and it was natural enough for them to raise him after the accident when he became what he first believed to be an orphan. He was 7. For a year, maybe a year and a half, that was a house of unadulterated sadness. The Krantzes had not only lost their son and daughter-in-law, they had also lost the granddaughter who would have been born just 3 months later. The name had already been picked out. Alyssa. When Chuck said that sounded to him like rain, his mother had laughed and cried at the same time. He never forgot that. He knew his other grandparents, of course. There were visits every summer, but they were basically strangers to him. They called a lot after he became an orphan, your basic how are you doing, how's school talks, and the summer visits continued. Sarah, aka Booby, aka Grandma, took him on the plane. But his mother's parents remained strangers, living in the foreign land of Omaha. They sent him presents on his birthday and at Christmas, the latter especially nice since Grandma and Grandpa didn't do Christmas, but otherwise he continued to think of them as outliers, like the teachers who were left behind as he moved up through the grades. Chuck began to slip his metaphorical mourning garments first, necessarily pulling his grandparents, old, yeah, but not ancient, out of their own grief. There came a time, when Chuck was 10, that they took the boy to Disney World. They had adjoining rooms at the Swan Resort. The door between the rooms kept open at night, and Chuck only heard his grandma crying once. Mostly, they had fun. Some of that good feeling came back home with them. Chuck sometimes heard Grandma humming in the kitchen or singing along with the radio. There had been lots of takeout meals after the accident and full recyclable bins full of Grandpa's Budweiser bottles, but in the year after Disney World, Grandma began cooking again. Good meals that put weight on a formerly skinny boy. She liked rock and roll while she was cooking, music Chuck would have thought much too young for her, but which she clearly enjoyed. If Chuck wandered into the kitchen looking for a cookie or maybe hoping to make a brown sugar roll-up with a slice of Wonder Bread, Grandma was apt to hold out her hands to him and start snapping her fingers. "Dance with me, Henry," she said. His name was Chuck, not Henry, but he usually took her up on it. She taught him jitterbug steps and a couple of crossover moves. She told him there were more, but her back was too creaky to attempt them. "I can show you though," she said, and one Saturday brought back a stack of videotapes from the Blockbuster store. There was Swing Time with Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers' West Side Story, and Chuck's favorite, Singin' in the Rain, where Gene Kelly danced through the lamppost. "You could learn those moves," she said. "You're a natural, kiddo." He asked her once when they were drinking iced tea after an especially strenuous go to Jackie Wilson's Higher and Higher, what she had been like in high school. "I was a cusset," she said, "but don't tell your Zadie I said that. He's old school, that one." Chuck never told, and he never went in the cupola. Not then. He asked about it, of course, and more than once. What was up there? What you could see from the high window, why the room was locked. Grandma said it was because the floor wasn't safe and he might go right through it. Grandpa said the same thing, that there was nothing up there because of the rotten floor and the only thing you could see from those windows was a shopping center. Big deal. He said that until one night, just before Chuck's 11th birthday, when he had told at least part of the truth. Drinking is not good for secrets, everybody knows that, and after the death of his son, daughter-in-law, and granddaughter-to-be, Alyssa sounds like rain, Albie Krantz drank a great deal. He should have bought stock in Anheuser-Busch. That was how much he drank. He could do it because he was retired and comfortably off and very depressed. After the trip to Disney World, the drinking tapered off to a glass of wine with dinner or a beer in front of a baseball game. Mostly. Once in a while, every month at first, every couple of months later on, Chuck's grandpa tied one on. Always at home and never making any fuss about it. The next day he would move slowly and eat little until afternoon. Then he was back to normal. One night, while watching the Red Sox get thumped by the Yankees, when Albie was well into his second six-pack of Bud, Chuck once more raised the subject of the cupola. Mostly just to have something to talk about. With the Sox down by 9, the game wasn't exactly holding his attention. "I bet you can see way past the Westford Mall," Chuck said. Grandpa considered this, then pushed the mute button on the TV controller, silencing an ad for Ford Truck Month. Grandpa said Ford stood for Fix or Repair Daily. "If you went up there, you might see a lot more than you wanted," he said. "That's why it's locked, Wojciech." Chuck felt a small and not entirely unpleasurable chill go through him, and his mind immediately flashed to Scooby-Doo and his friends, chasing down spooks in the Mystery Machine. He wanted to ask what Grandpa meant, but the adult part of him, not there in person, no, not at 10, but something that had begun to speak on rare occasions, told him to be quiet. Be quiet and wait. "Do you know what style this house is, Chucky?" "Victorian," Chuck said. "That's right, and not pretend Victorian either. It was built in 1885, been remodeled half a dozen times since, but the cupola was there from the start. Your bubby and I bought it when the shoe business really took off, and we got it for a song. Been here since 1971, and in all those years, I haven't been up to that damn cupola half a dozen times." "Because the floor is rotted?" Chuck asked, with what he hoped was appealing innocence. Because it's full of ghosts, Grandpa said, and Chuck felt that chill again. Not so pleasurable this time, although Grandpa might be joking. He did joke from time to time these days. Jokes were to Grandpa what dancing was to Grandma. He tipped his beer, belched. His eyes were red. Christmas yet to come. Do you remember that one, Chucky? Chuck did. They watched the Christmas Carol every year on Christmas Eve, even though they didn't do Christmas otherwise. But that didn't mean he didn't know what his grandpa was talking about. The Jeffries boy was only a short time later, Grandpa said. He was looking at the TV, but Chuck didn't think he was actually seeing it. What happened to Henry Peterson? That took longer. It was 4, maybe 5 years on. By then I'd almost forgotten what I saw up there. He jerked a thumb at the ceiling. I said I'd never go up there again after that, and I wish I hadn't because of Sarah, your booby, and the bread. It's the waiting, Chucky, that's the hard part. You'll find that out when you're... The kitchen door opened. It was Grandma, back from Mrs. Stanley's across the street. Grandma had taken her chicken soup because Mrs. Stanley was feeling poorly. So Grandma said, anyway, but even at not quite 11, Chuck had a good idea there was another reason. Mrs. Stanley knew all the neighborhood gossip. She's a yente, that one, Grandpa said, and was always willing to share. Grandma poured all the news out to Grandpa, usually after inviting Chuck out of the room. But out of the room didn't mean out of earshot. Who was Henry Peterson, Grandpa? Chuck asked. But Grandpa had heard his wife come in. He straightened up in his chair and put his can of bud aside. Look at that, he cried in a passable imitation of sobriety, not that Grandma would be fooled. The Sox have got the bases loaded. In the top of the 8th, Grandma sent Grandpa down to the Zoni's Go Mart at the bottom of the block to get milk for Chuck's Apple Jacks in the morning. And don't even think of driving, the walk will sober you up. Grandpa didn't argue. With Grandma he rarely did, and when he gave it a try, the results weren't good. When he was gone, Grandma, Booby, sat down next to Chuck on the couch and put an arm around him. Chuck put his head on her comfortably padded shoulder. Was he blabbing to you about his ghosts, the ones that lived in the cupola? Yeah. There's no point in telling a lie. Grandma saw right through those. Are there? Have you seen them? Grandma snorted. What do you think, Cantel? Later, it would occur to Chuck that this wasn't an answer. I wouldn't pay too much attention to Zadie. He's a good man, but sometimes he drinks a little too much. Then he rides his hobby horses. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Chuck did. Nixon should have gone to jail. The Fagelays were taking over American culture and turning it pink. Oh, I just realized what that was supposed to be. I kind of just read that without thinking about that. Excuse me. The Miss America pageant, which Grandma loved, was your basic meat show, but he had never said anything about ghosts in the cupola before that night, at least to Chuck. Booby, who was the Jeffries boy? She sighed. That was a very sad thing, boy Chuck. This was her little joke. He lived in the next block over and got hit by a drunk driver when he chased a ball into the street. It happened a long time ago. If your grandpa told you he saw it before it happened, he was mistaken, or making it up for one of his jokes. Grandma knew when Chuck was lying. On that night, Chuck discovered that there was a talent that could go both ways. It was all in the way she stopped looking at him and shifted her eyes to the television, as if what was going on there was interesting, even when Chuck knew Grandma didn't give a hang for baseball, not even the World Series. He just drinks too much, Grandma said, and that was the end of it. Maybe true. Probably true, but after that, Chuck was frightened of the cupola, with its locked door at the top of a short 6 steps, flight of narrow stairs lit by a single bare bulb hanging on a black cord. But fascination is fear's twin brother, and sometimes after that night, if both of his grandparents were out, he dared himself to climb them. He would touch the Yale padlock, wincing if it rattled, a sound that might disturb the ghosts pent up inside, then hurry back down the stairs, looking over his shoulder as he went. It was easy to imagine the lock popping open and dropping to the floor, the door creaking open on its unused hinges. If that happened, he guessed he might die of fright. The cellar, on the other hand, wasn't a bit scary. It was brightly lighted by fluorescence. After selling his shoe stores and retiring, Grandpa spent a lot of time down there doing woodwork. It always smelled sweetly of sawdust. In one corner, far from the planers and sanders and the bandsaw he was forbidden to touch, Chuck found a box of Grandpa's old Hardy Boys books. They were old-timey, but pretty good. He was reading the sinister signpost one day in the kitchen, waiting for Grandma to remove a batch of cookies from the oven, when she grabbed the book out of his hands. "You can do better than that," she said. "Time to step up your game, boy Chuck. Wait right there." "I was just getting to the good part," Chuck said. She snorted, a sound to which only Jewish boobies do true justice. "There are no good parts in these," she said, and took the book away. What she came back with was The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. "Now this is a good mystery story," she said. "No dumbass teenagers running around in jalopies. Consider this your introduction to actual writing," she considered. "Okay, so not Saul Bellow, but not bad." Chuck started the book just to please Grandma, and was soon lost. In his 11th year, he read almost 24 Agatha Christies. He tried a couple about Miss Marple, but he was much fonder of Hercule Poirot, with his fussy mustache and little grey cells. Poirot was one thinking cat. One day, during his summer vacation, Chuck was reading Murder on the Orient Express in the backyard hammock and happened to glance up at the window of the cupola far above. He wondered how Monsieur Poirot would go about investigating it. Aha, he thought. And then voila, which was better. The next time Grandma made blueberry muffins, Chuck asked if he could take some to Mrs. Stanley. "That's very thoughtful of you," Grandma said. "Why don't you do that? Just remember to look both ways when you cross the street." She always told him that when he was going somewhere. Now, with his little grey cells engaged, he wondered if she was thinking of the Jeffries boy. Grandma was plump and getting plumper, but Mrs. Stanley was twice her size, a widow who wheezed like a leaky tire when she walked and always seemed to be dressed in the same pink silk wrapper. Chuck felt vaguely guilty about bringing her treats that would add to her girth, but he needed information. She thanked him for the muffins and asked, as he'd been pretty sure she would, if he would like to have one with her in the kitchen. "I can make tea." "Thank you," Chuck said. "I don't drink tea, but I wouldn't mind a glass of milk." When they were seated at their little kitchen table in a flood of June sunshine, Mrs. Stanley asked how things were going with Albie and Sarah. Chuck, mindful that anything he said in this kitchen would be on the street before the day was out, said they were doing fine. But because Poirot said you had to give a little if you wanted to get a little, he added that Grandma was collecting clothes for the Lutheran homeless shelter. "Grandma's a saint," Mrs. Stanley said, obviously disappointed there wasn't more. "What about your granddad? Did he get that thing on his back looked at?" "Yeah," Chuck said. "He took a sip of milk. The doctor took it off and had it tested. It wasn't one of the bad ones. Thank God for that." "Yes," Chuck agreed, having given he now felt entitled to get. He was talking with Grandma about someone named Henry Peterson. "I guess he's dead?" He was prepared for disappointment. She might have never heard of Henry Peterson, but Mrs. Stanley widened her eyes until Chuck was actually afraid they might fall out, and grasped her neck like she had a piece of blueberry muffin stuck in there. "Oh, that was so sad, so awful. He was the bookkeeper who did your father's accounts, you know, other companies too." She leaned forward, her wrapper giving Chuck a view of a bosom so large it seemed hallucinatory. She was still clutching her neck. "He killed himself," she whispered. "Hung himself." "Was he embezzling?" Chuck asked. "There's a lot of embezzling in Agatha Christie books. Also blackmail." "What? God, no." She pressed her lips together, as if to keep in something not fit for the ears of such a beardless youth as the one sitting across from her. If that was the case, her natural proclivity to tell everything, and to anyone, prevailed. His wife ran away with a younger man, hardly old enough to vote, and she was in her 40s. What do you think of that? The only reply Chuck could think of right off the bat was, "Wow!" And that seemed to suffice. Back at home, he pulled his notebook off the shelf and jotted, "G saw a ghost of Jeffrey's boy not long before he died. Saw a ghost of H. Peterson 4 or 5 years before he died." Chuck stopped, chewing the end of his bike, troubled. He didn't want to write what was in his mind, but felt that, as a good detective, he had to. Sarah in the bread. Did he see Grandma's ghost in the cupola? The answer seemed obvious to him. Why else would Grandpa have talked about how hard the waiting was? Now I'm waiting too, Chuck thought, and hoping that it's all just a bunch of bullshit. Oh. Okay. Hmm. Interesting. On the last day of 6th grade, Miss Richards, a sweet hippy-dippy-ish young woman who had no command of discipline and would probably not last long in the public education system, tried to read Chuck's class some verses of Walt Whitman's Song of Myself. It didn't go well. The kids were rowdy and didn't want poetry, only to escape into the months of summer stretching ahead. Chuck was the same, happy to throw spitballs or give Mike Enderby the finger when Miss Richards was looking down at her book. But one line changed in his head and made him sit up straight. When the class was finally over and the kids set free, he lingered. Miss Richards sat at her desk and blew a strand of hair back from her forehead. When she saw Chuck still standing there, she gave him a weary smile. That went well, don't you think? Chuck knew sarcasm when he heard it, even when the sarcasm was gentle and self-directed. He was Jewish, after all. Well, half. What does that mean when he says, "I am a large, I contain multitudes"? That made her smile perk up. She propped one small fist on her chin and looked at him with her pretty grey eyes. What do you think it means? All the people he knows? Chuck ventured. Yes, she agreed. But maybe he means even more. Lean forward. He leaned over her desk, where American verse lay on top of her grade book. Very gently, he put her palms to his temples. They were cool. They felt so wonderful he had to suppress a shiver. What's in there between my hands? Just the people you know? More, Chuck said. He was thinking of his mother and father and the baby he never got a chance to hold. Alyssa sounds like rain. Memories. Yes, she said. Everything you see, everything you know. The world, Chucky. Planes in the sky, manhole covers in the street. Every year you live, that world inside your head will get bigger and brighter, more detailed and complex. Do you understand? I think so, Chuck said. He was so overwhelmed with the thought of a whole world inside the fragile bowl of his skull. He thought of the Jeffries boy, hit in the street. He thought of Henry Peterson, his father's bookkeeper, dead at the end of a rope. He'd had nightmares about that. The world's going dark, like a room when you turned out the light. Miss Richards took her hand away. She looked concerned. Are you all right, Chucky? Yes, he said. Then go on, you're a good boy. I've enjoyed having you in class. He went to the door, then turned back. Miss Richards, do you believe in ghosts? She considered this. I believe memories are ghosts, but spooks flapping along the halls of musty castles, I think those only exist in books and movies. And maybe in the cupola of Grandpa's house, Chuck thought. Enjoy your summer, Chucky. Chuck did enjoy his summer until August, when Grandma died. It happened down the street in public, which was a little undignified, but at least it was the kind of death where people can safely say, thank God she didn't suffer at the funeral. That other standby, she had a long, full life, was in more of a grey area. Sarah Krantz had yet to reach her mid-60s, although she was getting close. Once more, the house on Pilchard Street was one of unadulterated sadness, only this time there was no trip to Disney World to mark the beginning of recovery. Chuck reverted to calling Grandma his booby, at least in his own head, and cut himself to sleep on many nights. He did it with his face in his pillow so he wouldn't make Grandpa feel even worse. Sometimes he whispered, Booby, I miss you. Booby, I love you, until sleep finally took him. Grandpa wore his mourning band and lost weight and stopped telling his jokes and began to look older than his 70 years, but Chuck also sensed, or thought he did, some relief in his grandpa. If so, Chuck could understand. When you lived with dread day in and day out, there had to be relief when the dreaded thing had finally happened and was over. Didn't there? He didn't go up the steps of the cupola after she died, daring himself to touch the padlock, but he did go down to Zoni's one day just before starting 7th grade at Acker Park Middle School. He bought a soda in a Kit Kat bar, then asked the clerk where the woman was when she had her stroke and died. The clerk, an over-tatted 20-something with a lot of greased back blonde hair, gave an unpleasant laugh. Kid, that's a little creepy. Are you, I don't know, brushing up on your serial killer skills early? She was my grandma, Chuck said. My booby. I was at the community pool when it happened. I came back in the house calling for her, and Grandpa told me she was dead. That wiped the smile off the clerk's face. Oh man, I'm sorry. It was over there. Third aisle. Sorry. Chuck went to the third aisle and looked, already knowing what he would see. She was getting a loaf of bread, the clerk said. Pulled down almost everything on the shelf when she collapsed. Sorry if that's too much information. No, Chuck said and thought. That's information I already knew. On a second day at Acker Park Middle, Chuck walked past the bulletin board by the main office then doubled back. Among the posters for pep club, band, and tryouts for the fall sports team, there was one showing a boy and a girl caught in mid-dance step. He was holding his hand up so she could spin beneath. Learn to dance, it said above the smiling children in rainbow letters. Below it, join twirlers and spinners. Fall fling is coming. Get out on the floor. An image of painful clarity came to Chuck as he looked at this. Grandma in the kitchen, holding her hands out, snapping her fingers and saying, "Dance with me, Henry." That afternoon he went down to the gymnasium, where he and 9 hesitant others were greeted enthusiastically by Miss Rohrbacher, the girls' phys ed teacher. Chuck was one of the 3 boys. There were 7 girls. All the girls were taller. One of the boys, Paul Mulford, tried to creep out as soon as he realized he was the smallest kid there, coming in at 5 feet nothing. Miss Rohrbacher chased him down and hauled him back, laughing cheerfully. "No, no, no," she said. "You're mine now." So he was. So they all were. Miss Rohrbacher was the dance monster, and none could stand in her way. She fired up her boombox and showed them the waltz. Chuck knew it. The cha-cha. Chuck knew it. The ball change. Chuck knew it. Then the samba. Chuck didn't know that one, but when Miss Rohrbacher put on Tequila by the Champs and showed them the basic moves, he got it at once and fell in love with it. He was by far the best dancer in the little club, so Miss Rohrbacher mostly put him with the girls who were clumsy. He understood she did it to make them better, and he was a good sport about it, but it was sort of boring. Near the end of their 45 minutes, however, the dance monster would show mercy and pair him with Kat McCoy, who was an 8th grader and the best dancer of the girls. Chuck didn't expect romance. Kat was not only gorgeous, she was 4 inches taller than he was, but he loved to dance with her, and the feeling was mutual. When they got together, they caught the rhythm and let it fill them. They looked into each other's eyes. She had to look down, which was a bummer, but hey, it was what it was, and laughed for the joy of it. Before letting the kids go, Miss Rohrbacher paired them up. 4 of the girls had to dance with each other and told them to freestyle. As they lost their inhibitions and awkwardness, they all got pretty good at it, although most of them were never going to dance at the Copacabana. One day, this was in October, only a week or so before the fall fling, Miss Rohrbacher put on Billie Jean. "Watch this," Chuck said, and did a very passable moonwalk. The kids oohed. Miss Rohrbacher's mouth dropped open. "Oh my God," Kat said. "Show me how you did that." He did it again. Kat tried, but the illusion of walking backward just wasn't there. "Kick off your shoes," Chuck said. "Do it in your socks. Slide into it." Kat did. It was much better, and they all applauded. Miss Rohrbacher had a go, then all of the others were moonwalking like crazy. Even Dylan Masterson, the clumsiest of them, got into it. Twirlers and spinners let out half an hour later than usual that day. Chuck and Kat walked out together. "We should do it at the fling," she said. Chuck, who hadn't been planning on going, stopped and looked at her with his eyebrows raised. "Not as a date or anything," Kat hastened on, "but I'm going out with Dougie Wentworth." This Chuck knew. "But that doesn't mean we couldn't show them some cool moves. I want to, don't you?" "I don't know," Chuck said. "I'm a lot shorter. I think people would laugh." "Got you covered," Kat said. "My brother's got a pair of Cuban heels, and I think they'd fit you. You've got big feet for a little kid." "Thanks a bunch," Chuck said. She laughed and gave him a sisterly hug. At the next meeting of twirlers and spinners, Kat McCoy brought her brother's Cubans. Chuck, who had already endured slight to his manhood for being in the dance club, was prepared to hate them, but it was love at first sight. The heels were high, the toes were pointed, and they were as black as midnight in Moscow. They looked a lot like the ones Bo Diddley wore back in the day. So, okay, they were a little big, but toilet paper stuffed into those pointy toes took care of that. Best of all, man, they were slick. During freestyle, when Miss Robichaud put on Caribbean Queen, the gym floor felt like ice. You put scratches on that floor, the janitors will beat your butt, Tammy Underwood said. She was probably right, but there were no scratches. He was too light on his feet to leave any. Chuck went stag to the fall fling, which turned out just fine, because all the girls from Twirlers and Spinners wanted to dance with him. Especially Kat, because her boyfriend, Dougie Wentworth, had 2 left feet, and spent most of the evening slouched against the wall with his buddies, all of them sucking up punch and watching the dancers with lordly sneers. Kat kept asking him where they were going to do their stuff, and Chuck kept putting her off. He said he'd know the right tune when he heard it. It was his booby he was thinking of. Around 9 o'clock, half an hour or so before the dance was scheduled to end, the right tune came up. It was Jackie Wilson, singing higher and higher. Chuck strutted to Kat with his hands out. She kicked off her shoes, and with Chuck and her brother's Cubans, they were at least close to the same height. They went out to the floor, and when they did a double moonwalk, they cleared it. The kids made a circle around them and began clapping. Miss Robichaud, one of the chaperones, was among them, clapping along with the rest and shouting, "Go, go, go!" They did. As Jackie Wilson shouted that happy, gospel-tinged tune, they danced like Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers, Gene Kelly, and Jennifer Beals all rolled up into one. They finished with Kat spinning first one way, then the other, then collapsing backward into Chuck's arms with her own held out in a dying swan. He went down in a split that miraculously didn't rip the crotch out of his pants. 200 kids cheered when Kat turned her head and put a kiss on the corner of Chuck's mouth. "One more time," some kid shouted, but Chuck and Kat shook their heads. They were young, but smart enough to know when to quit. The best cannot be topped. 6 months before he died of a brain tumor, at the unfair age of 39, and while his mind was still working, mostly, Chuck told his wife the truth about the scar on the back of his hand. It wasn't a big deal and hadn't been a big lie, but he'd reached the time in his rapidly diminishing life when it seemed important to clear the books. The only time she'd asked about it, really was a very small scar, he told her that he had gotten it from a boy named Doug Wentworth, who was pissed about him cavorting with his girlfriend at a middle school dance and pushed him into a chain-link fence outside the gymnasium. "What actually happened?" Ginny asked. Not because it was important to her, but because it seemed to be important to him. She didn't care much about whatever had happened to him in middle school. The doctor said he would probably be dead before Christmas. That was what mattered to her. When the fabulous dance was over and the DJ put on another, more recent tune, Kat McCoy had run to her girlfriends, who giggled and shrieked and hugged her with a fervency of which only 13-year-old girls may be capable. Chuck was sweaty and so hot his cheeks felt on the verge of catching fire. He was also euphoric. All he wanted in that moment was darkness, cool air, and to be by himself. He walked past Dougie and his friends, who paid absolutely no attention to him, like a boy in a dream, pushed through the door at the back of the gym and walked out into the paved half-court. The cool air, fall air, doused the fire in his cheeks, but not the euphoria. He looked up, saw a million stars, and understood that for each one of those million, there was another million behind it. The universe is large, he thought. It contains multitudes. It also contains me. And in this moment, I am wonderful. I have a right to be wonderful. He moonwalked under the basketball hoop, moving to the music inside. When he made his little confession to Ginny, he could no longer remember what the music had been, but for the record it was the Steve Miller Band Jet Airliner, and then twirled, his arms outstretched, as if to embrace everything. There was a pain in his right hand, not big pain, just your basic ouch, but it was enough to bring him out of his joyous elevation of spirit and back to earth. He saw that the back of his hand was bleeding. While he was doing his whirling dervish bit under the stairs, his outflung hand had struck the chain-link fence and a protruding jut of wire had cut him. It was a superficial wound, hardly enough to merit a band-aid. It left a scar, though. A tiny white crescent scar. Why would you lie about that? Ginny asked. She was smiling as she picked up his hand and kissed the scar. I could understand it if you'd gone on to tell me how you beat the big bully to a pulp, but you've never said that. No, he'd never said that. And he'd never had a bit of trouble with Dougie Wentworth. For one thing, he was a cheerful enough galliot. For another, Chuck Krantz was a 7th grade midget unworthy of notice. Why hadn't he told the lie then, if not to cast himself as the hero of a fictional story? Because the scar was important for another reason. Because it was part of a story he couldn't tell, even though there was now an apartment building standing on the site of the Victorian house where he had done most of his growing up. The haunted Victorian house. The scar meant more, so he had made it more. He just couldn't make it as much more as it really was. That made little sense, but as the glioblastoma continued its blitzkrieg, it was the best this disintegrating mind could manage. He had finally told her the truth of how the scar actually happened, and that would have to do. Chuck's grandpa, his 80, died of a heart attack 4 years after the fall fling dance. It happened while Albie was climbing the steps of the public library to return a copy of The Grapes of Wrath, which he said was every bit as good as he remembered. Chuck was a junior in high school, singing in a band and dancing like Jagger during the instrumental breaks. Grandpa left him everything. The estate, once quite large, had shrunk considerably over the years since Grandpa's early retirement, but there was still enough to pay for Chuck's college education. Later on, the sale of the Victorian paid for the house. Small but in a good neighborhood with a lovely back room for a nursery, he and Virginia moved into after their honeymoon in the Catskills. As a new hire at Midwest Trust, a humble teller, he could have bought the plane without Grandpa's inheritance. Sorry, let me read that again. As a new hire at Midwest Trust, a humble teller, he could never have bought the place without Grandpa's inheritance. Chuck flatly refused to move to Omaha to live with his mother's parents. "I love you guys," he said, "but this is where I grew up and where I want to stay until I go to college. I'm 17, not a baby." So they, both long retired, came to him and stayed in the Victorian with him for the 20 months or so before Chuck went off to the University of Illinois. They weren't able to be there for the funeral and burial, however. It happened fast, as Grandpa had wanted, and his mom's folks had loose ends to tie up in Omaha. Chuck didn't really miss them. He was surrounded by friends and neighbors he knew much better than his mother's goy parents. A day before they were scheduled to arrive, Chuck finally opened a manila envelope that had been sitting on the table in the front hall. It was from the Everett Holloway funeral parlor. Inside were Albie Krantz's personal effects, at least those that had been in his pockets when he collapsed on the library steps. Chuck dumped the envelope out on the table. There was a rattle of coins, a few hauls, cough drops, a pocket knife, the new cell phone Grandpa had barely had a chance to use, and his wallet. Chuck picked up the wallet, smelled its old limp leather, kissed it, and cried a little. He was an orphan now for sure. There was also Grandpa's keyring. Chuck slipped this over the index finger of his right hand, the one with the crescent-shaped scar, and climbed the short and shadowy flight of the stairs to the cupola. This last time he did more than rattle the Yale padlock. After some searching, he found the right key and unlocked it. He left the lock hanging from the hasp and pushed the door open, wincing at the squeal of the old unoiled hinges ready for anything. But there was nothing. The room was empty. It was small, circular, no more than 14 feet in diameter, maybe less. On the far side was a single wide window, caked with the dirt of years. Although the day was sunny, the light it let in was bleary and diffuse. Standing on the threshold, Chuck put out a foot and toed the boards like a boy testing the water of a pond to see if it was cold. There was no creak, no give. He stepped in, ready to leap back the moment he felt the floor starting to sag, but it was solid. He walked across to the window, leaving footprints in the thick fall of dust. Grandpa had been lying about the rotted floor, but about the view he had been dead on. It really wasn't much. Chuck could see the shopping center beyond the green belt, and beyond that an Amtrak train moving toward the city, pulling a stump tail of 5 passenger cars. At this time of day, with the morning commuter rush over, there would be few riders. Chuck stood at the window until the train was gone, then followed his footprints back to the door. As he turned to close it, he saw a bed in the middle of the circular room. It was a hospital bed. There was a man in it. He appeared to be unconscious. There were no machines, but Chuck could hear one just the same, going beep, beep, beep. A heart monitor, maybe. There was a table beside the bed. On it were various lotions and a pair of black-framed glasses. The man's eyes were closed. One hand lay outside the coverlet, and Chuck observed the crescent-shaped scar on the back of it with no surprise. In this room, Chuck's grandpa, his Sadie, had seen his wife lying dead. The loaves of bread she would pull off the shelves when she went down scattered all around her. "It's the waiting, Chucky," he'd said. "That's the hard part." Now his own waiting would begin. How long would that wait be? How old was the man in the hospital bed? Chuck started back into the cupola for a closer look, but the vision was gone. No man, no hospital bed, no table. There was one final faint beep from the unseen monitor. Then that was gone too. The man did not fade, as ghostly apparitions did in movies. He was just gone, insisting he had never been there in the first place. He wasn't, Chuck thought. I will insist that he wasn't, and I will live my life until my life runs out. I am wonderful. I deserve to be wonderful, and I contain multitudes. He closed the door and snapped the lock shut. That was The Life of Chuck by Stephen King. What a lovely ending. I thought it was good, yeah. I thought the ending was good. Oh. I don't know how to feel about the story yet. Not Cameron dropping the Yiddish episode like it's breathing. I didn't know. I didn't know. Charis 100% needs to do QTC for us. He already acts like a king. I don't know. I'll think about it. I love how they framed it as being Marty's story, but they spend so much time on the life of another man as a boy and all the important moments of his life. I don't know if it's Marty's story. I think this is, well, the title is Life of Chuck. I'm gonna be honest, right? Right off the gate, I need to be honest, you know, I need to confess to how I feel about various aspects of this story. Here's the first thing I'm a little unsure about. I have to like sort of admit my admit my ignorance of this. I don't get what the point of Marty was at the beginning. I don't understand. I think it makes no goddamn sense to me. Like, why did he spend so much time talking about Marty Anderson? And like his ex-wife, like what? I just don't understand. Other than that, like everything else clicked in place for me perfectly. Other than like beginning with Marty, which I just don't understand. I think the whole story really sort of, it clicked and it resonated with me. Like it sort of fell into place promptly. I really liked it. I really liked The Life of Chuck. Kind of felt like framing the end of the world from someone else's perspective, since Chuck himself couldn't comment on it. I mean, yes, but why? You know, like the imagery is kind of interesting, like the scenery, the scene of wide gaping holes in the earth, you know, shattering and like disaster and death and all of that stuff is kind of cool. And then like we sort of travel further into the story and realize, oh, this is Chuck's mind that's sort of collapsing, right? I suppose. But like, I think beyond, I just don't see why. I just don't get that part yet. Maybe it will click with me like if I think about it a bit more. But right now I genuinely don't see why the first half of Act 3 was necessary, basically. I'm not saying it was bad, it was just like, it felt really strange, like I was reading two different stories almost. I don't know. But I have to say, I like it. I like the story. Sorry, you can hear me like put my hand on my table. I just realized. Marty's a stand-in for the average New England husband. I don't think that's true. Thanks, Chuck. Thanks for the 39 great years, indeed. I don't know what else to say about it. It's really good. I should be giving some thoughts. That's what I should be doing. Okay. The most interesting thing to me of this by far is I don't think it's new, but it's sort of the first time I'd read a short story done this way, in this particular way, but sort of doing the story backwards in a way, like starting from Act 3 and then going to Act 2 and then Act 1. I wonder how the experience would be like if you read now Act 1, 2, and then 3. I wonder how that would work. I don't know. I might, like, maybe that makes the short story worth rereading, perhaps. I thought that was really cool. The sort of backwards telling of this man's life is interesting. I think that's the highlight scene as well. The dance scene in the sidewalk, that feels really good. That felt really good to read when he was on his way to a conference, and then a street performer, a busker, was sort of just improvising a beat, and then he danced along to it, and it became a whole thing. It was really cool. I also liked the flashback. I also liked the time he spent with his grandparents. That was really enjoyable to read as well. Those were the bits that I think resonated with the most. I don't know if it was the point, but to me it sort of drives in the idea that fate is cruel and unfair, and people with their own stories and their own people they love can mean untimely demise as well. I think it's the cruelty, I guess, is like a feature, but I don't think it's the focus to me. I think the cruelty and uncaringness of life is just sort of like, it is what it is to me. It's more so, I think, focusing on, like, despite this unfairness, right? There's something beautiful about a fleeting life that does not have to be dramatic or really big. It's just sort of something, well, it can be something really mundane, right? I guess, relatively speaking, mundane, but nonetheless beautiful and, yeah, like beautiful in its own way. Like, all of Chuck's relatives were able to be there while he was dying and say their goodbyes, but Marty couldn't for Felicia because the world ended before he could say I love you. Yeah, so I just don't see what the connection between Marty and Felicia is with, like, so you can tell why I'm not like an English lit major and why I'm a philosophy major instead. But I'm struggling to see the artistic intention or the author's intent of juxtaposing those two ends of life at the end of Act 3, which is like the beginning chapter, act, whatever, right? Wonder if it's pandemic commentary? Maybe. Time he spent with his Booby and Zadie was so heartwarming to me as someone who grew up with a Jewish family. I think it was heartwarming. I liked it. I really that was probably my favorite bit. Was probably the dance bit, the street dance, and the growing up with grandparents, I think. Act 3 is kind of dreary in a lifeless, disappointing way, contrasting with the highlight of Chuck being so lively with the dancing. I suppose so. I can see that with like, I can see that in the scenes of Act 3 where we are on Chuck. We're focused on Chuck. Not when we're focused in like Marty's perspective. When it's Marty's perspective, I really genuinely don't know what's going on, and I don't know why it needed to be in the story, because I am not as literate as I want to be. So anyone who knows or has a sort of interpretation that's probably more that's somewhat convincing, please let me know down in a comment or something, or send me an angry email. I don't know, you could do that too if you'd like, about why I'm stupid and stuff. But I really I'm not sure. I don't know. Anyways, I'll tell you why I wanted to read this. The main reason is because I wanted to do this reading stream so I could read the story before I watched the movie Life of Chuck, starring Tom Hiddleston. And I couldn't watch, or I didn't have time to watch it last weekend, so I might do it the next weekend, the one after that. I don't know. Looked it up, and apparently first half of Act 1 isn't actually real. It all happens in Chuck's head as his brain shuts down, interprets the world as ending, but I like the idea that it's real. Do you mean Act 3 when you say Act 1? Or do you mean Act 1 when you say Act 1? If you mean Act 3, that's also interesting. Like the first half of Act 1? Like with the ghosts? I don't know if that's the take I would agree with. I don't know. Meant Act 3, okay. It's just not real happening. So my question then isn't, it's not so much like what is real and what isn't in this like story or fiction. My question really is like, why did Stephen King write that? Like with the billboards and the internet going down, right? So my question isn't that. My question is like, why did King write this? What am I supposed to feel? Because I just kind of felt confused. I didn't really feel anything until we got to like Chuck. Then I was like, oh, we're cooking with Chuck. Did you catch Sinners in theaters? No, I didn't. So, I don't know. Maybe I'll watch in the Discord. We'll see. What the hell could it mean? I don't know. That's the thing. That's the burning kind of question in my head. It's like, what the hell is the beginning bit for? Like, it just doesn't click with me yet. Everything else works for me. Everything else, I get it. Everything else, yes, this is fucking awesome. They were cooking. Or King was cooking with that. But that bit at the beginning with, like, Marty, like, why? Marty and Felicia, like, what was the point? Or not the point. I'm not saying everything has to have a point, but, like, why did he choose to write that? I just don't see why he chose to write that. I don't have to agree with, you know, the fact that he wrote it. It's just, I don't even know why he did it. You know what I mean? Like, that's what's kind of confounding me right now. Because if I knew what he did, knew why he did it, and I disagreed with why he did it, there could be some sort of disagreement or discussion. Now I just genuinely don't get it. I don't know. Anyways, that's my burning question for this reading. I think everything else made a lot of sense and was really, like, it was a weird, tragic kind of beautiful, because it wasn't just tragic and it wasn't just beautiful, but it wasn't like, I don't know if it's bittersweet. I don't know what to call. It's like, It's not hopeful exactly either, because it's kind of like, okay, well, he just fucking dies and then the world ends, is kind of like the part of it, right? I don't know. It's sort of haunting. It's a sort of waiting for death. I loved the what it made me feel though at the end with the looking at the hospital bed. Like, it's a scene you kind of see coming, because he does, King kind of foreshadows that in Act 2, I think. Chuck, I think, like Chuck, or like at the beginning of Act 3, right? Chuck eventually confronting his eventual demise, right? Or him confronting his eventual demise. It's something I think about a lot, and this is, I guess, one of the ways to write that sort of idea. I think the rest of the story, rather than, however, making you broil in the existential dread that is like, okay, what if you saw the end of your life? It more was like, even if you did, understandably would cause some sort of stress and anxiety, and maybe you would feel awful about existing and stuff, and it would be unfair that you had to die so young. But at the same time, it's like, you can enjoy the simple things in life, to put it in simple terms, right? It's the simple things in life. Marty Anderson represents us. I'm not dying just because Stephen King's in his deathbed, okay? Like, my world's gonna go on, probably, hopefully. I know I'm 60 years old, so, you know, my odds aren't great, but, like, you know, I like to hope that I look young, okay? Saw someone theorize that Marty and Felicia are all people that Chuck has encountered in his life, and as his life ends, so do they. Don't think the world's actually ending. I think it's just his world ending. Like, I mean, that part I get. I get why. Sorry, I get how Act 3 works. I get the mechanics of Act 3. I get how it works. I understand that it's most likely like just an extended metaphor for Chuck's own world dying or like collapsing, right? But I just don't see why King wrote it that way. You know, why write it this way instead of maybe, you know, like, I don't know, how else could he have written that? I don't know what the fuck he was doing, so I can't even suggest what else he would write. But it's just that I kind of like, it's like Black Parade album, instead of teenagers, it's just white collar workers. Is that true? That might be true. That might actually be true. Anyways, I'm really tired because it's just relatively long reading. I'm gonna go now. I hope everyone has an enjoyable time away, far away from me. I'm gonna go and close my eyes for a very long time. What do I think? I liked it. I've given my thoughts already. I've liked it. I'm a little confused with Marty Anderson. And at the beginning of the story, which is like Act 3, because they flipped the structure around. I loved the themes of mortality and death in the existential sense, but not in a way that's too gloomy or too optimistic. More just in a sense that's like, rather than talking about the big ideas when we're having this existential dread of like, oh, life and death and purpose and whatnot, focusing on the smaller things actually, which is just, hey, dancing, going to your job, having, you know, talking to your wife and kids, reminiscing on the times you spent with your grandparents. Like, these are all like the, rather than doing the big things, the pull of you kind of being sucked into the smaller joys of life is, I think, what was done really well here. Anyways, that's how I feel about it. That's what I think. That's what I'll say. That's all I'll do. I'm gonna go now. Thank you everyone for joining me. I hope everyone has a somewhat pleasant rest of their day. Hopefully, I don't know, whatever. I don't actually care, but I'm just saying that because I'm in a particularly good mood now that I've read the story, because it's pretty good. I'll see everyone Friday. Goodbye.